Speak. Push the speak button is what you need to say.
Yes.
Thank you. Let's get the November meeting of the Tennessee Real Estate Commission underway. At this point, I will ask Caitlin Maxwell, our Executive Director, to read a public statement and then call the roll.
This meeting is being recorded and or transcribed.
Have this. Don't move that fast.
Okay. Notice of the November 10th meeting of the Real Estate Commission, including date, time, and location, has been noticed on the Tennessee Real Estate website since August 26, 2020. Additionally, this month's agenda has been posted on the website since Friday, November 5th, 2021. For the roll, Commissioner Joe Begley.
Here.
Commissioner Jeff Diaz.
Here.
Commissioner DJ Ferris. Commissioner Marcia Franks. Commissioner Steve Gwynn.
Here.
Commissioner John Moffitt.
Here.
Commissioner Joan Smith. Commissioner Stacy Torbett.
Here.
Chairman John Grease.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. At this point, I'm going to ask Commissioner Torbett to lead us in the invocation, and following that invocation, if everyone will please stand, she will then lead us in the pledge to the flag. Ms. Torbett. Okay. Let's show Commissioner Ferris is present and accounted for.
Do you want to roll call him?
All right, stand by for a prayer.
Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. I thank you for the health and safety of all of those here, in person or virtually. I ask you to give us wisdom and discernment today to make good decisions and help us to honor all that we say. All the men and women and amen.
And thank you, Stacy. Next up is to approve today's agenda. You all received that by email. Any additions, deletions, or is there a motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
Second.
Mr. Ferris makes a motion to approve the agenda. Mr. Diaz seconds that motion. Any discussion? Let's vote. If you're in favor of that motion, vote aye.
Aye.
If you're opposed, vote no. And the agenda is approved for today. Next up is to approve last month's minutes.
Second.
Mr. Ferris makes a motion to approve last month's agenda and seconded by Mr. Diaz.
I'd like to abstain since I wasn't there.
Okay. But they're right. The minutes are correct. I just want you to know. Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve last month's minutes. If you're in favor of that motion, vote aye.
Aye.
If you're opposed, vote no. And the motion passes on a 6-aye and 1 abstention vote. Mr. Begley abstains. Next up are informal appearances. We have 4 candidates today. And Caitlin, do you think everyone's here, or let's do this. Are you guys back here to come before us today? You're just getting credit. You're what? Education. Okay, perfect. So, how about?
Would you like me to do just a roll call?
Yeah, let's see who's here.
Okay. If you're here for an informal appearance, if you could just say here when I call your name. Darian Kaylee Catlin.
I hear.
Thank you. Alicia Harm.
Here.
Sean Hodge,
Here.
John Carlson.
Here.
Thank you. And if your principal broker is not here, can you let us know that? I can run through that. Is Stephen Sharp here?
Yes, I'm present.
Dana or Dana Landry?
Yes, I'm present.
Todd Smith?
Yes, ma'am.
Sue Acey?
Here.
Okay.
All right. Let's start in order then with candidate A. If commissioners will take a look at your iPad, there's a little bit of information about this case. That's the third item on your iPad. All right, Caitlin, you want to give us just a little background before we get started?
Yes. First up, we have Kaylee. She has taken the Tennessee Real Estate Broker Affiliate exam. Her principal broker is Stephen Sharp. He was first licensed as a broker in August of 2015, first licensed in 2007. The firm is Greater Chattanooga Realty, doing business as Keller Williams Realty. A summary of the criminal and disciplinary sanction is felony possession of cocaine. A statement and letter of recommendation can be found in your packet.
Thank you. So, see each of the candidates and their broker, potential broker, our procedure is for the executive director to give us a quick summary, then go to the candidate and let the candidate tell the commission as much or as little as you think you would like for us to know about the event that occurred, why it caused you to get here, what you've been doing since, if you'd like to talk about that. Anything you think that would be helpful to this commission as we try to make a decision about whether it allow you to get a real estate license will be helpful. When you're finished with your statement, and commissioners reserve the right to ask any questions of you, and following those questions, we'll turn to the broker for that particular candidate and let the broker tell us why he or she thinks the candidate is a good fit for his or her company. Again, commissioners have the right to ask the broker questions, and eventually we'll get to a motion on each candidate. And the motion might be to allow you to go forward to get your license. It might be to say, sorry, we don't think you're a good fit for the real estate industry, or it may be something in between those two. So if you have any questions along the way, please ask. But we're going to go on now with Miss Kaylee, Darian Kaylee, Catalin, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm going to give you the floor, and you have an opportunity now to just fill us in on what happened and what got you here and why you're interested in getting in the business.
Initially, I met Jana Myers, who is planning on bringing me onto her team. I started out as her assistant back in April or May, and I just fell in love with the real estate, aspect, and decided that it, was time for me to move forward from being an assistant, and, went and got my license, and well, in the process or passed the test. But from then on, I've just been, following her, and I really do love this. I love, getting to know people and, helping them find their homes. And that's where I'm at so far. Just waiting for the next step.
This question. Tell us about. Would you care to tell us why you were arrested, circumstances, situations, anything that caused this event to occur?
Yes. So it was about 4 or 5 years ago. I was going down to the beach, and a girl that was in a class with me in college asked if she could ride in the car with me. And of course I allowed her to. we had, had like study groups and some, but we weren't, very good acquaintances. I was going to give her a ride. She told me she would give me gas money. And on the way down there, I got pulled over for speeding. And the cop found the drug. And, of course I told him it wasn't mine. After that, took a drug test, a hair follicle, just to prove that I had never had any drugs in my system, but that the girl who was in the car, whose drug it was, did not claim it. And so, of course, that it was in my vehicle. I had to take the charge for it. Even in court, my attorney, still fought for me, and I had a very minimal sentence, I guess, in that sense. But I did prove to the courts that, I had never, been involved with any drug substances. So, and like I said, that was about 4 or 5 years ago. This February, I think, will be 5 years. Since then, I've not associated with anybody I could I guess would be related with drugs. I have a 3-year-old son. I'm just, I guess, not associating with that, if that makes any sense. But yeah, at the time, like I had no idea that she even had that with her, or would have that with her. I honestly had no idea. I knew that maybe she drank on the weekends, but that's about the extent that I knew of the girl. And after that, people told me, no, she's been known to do drugs, but like I had no idea at that particular time. Since then, besides the court date where she was there also, I have not seen or heard from the girl. Yeah, and since then, like I said, I don't associate with people who may be related to, and have drugs on them. I have a child, and I'm trying to just, get into the real estate career and be a better person, I guess.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions for Ms. Kaylee? Jeff?
Ms. Kaylee, so just tell us, how many total years have you been with your sponsoring broker as an assistant?
It just started this year. I started with Jana back in March, and she brought me on just to see if I would like being her assistant. So it's only been about 6, 7, maybe coming on November would be 8 months now of just, working by her side and helping her out.
Other commissioners? So just one quick question. Your application says you have a Georgia address. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I do live in Georgia.
Do you have a Georgia real estate license?
No, sir. Not. Jana does, and she's recommended that if everything, goes well and I'm able to obtain my Tennessee license, that she recommends I get my Georgia. I'm right here on the line, so I'm, about 10 minutes from Tennessee. So that's why I, decided to go with Tennessee first.
Oh, Anna, do we care where this applicant lives? Okay. All right. If there are no other questions for Ms. Kaylee, then we'll go to Stephen Sharp. Will you show your face, Stephen? I see you now. Will you give us
Good morning.
Your reasoning for thinking that Kaylee is a good fit for your company?
Yeah, sure. So as Kaylee said, she has been working with Jana Myers, one of our agents here in the office, for the last 7 or 8 months. Jana is one of our top performing agents and has taken her under her wing and basically, walked her through the admin role in terms of doing data entry, doing the prospecting, doing some of the information gathering that they do for their listings and their lead generation. And so walked her through that process and kind of demonstrated to her what the day-to-day life as a real estate agent looks like. Kaylee has been in the office working alongside Jana that entire time, and there has not been a single issue, a single problem, a single complaint from any of our staff, any of our other agents, or any of the clients that they've worked with together. Obviously we believe in second chances. And don't feel that any sort of conviction like the one that she's facing or had faced in the past should color our perception of who she is or who she would be performing as a real estate agent.
Questions? Jeff, then Steve.
Yes.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to know, is Jana Myers a licensee or is she an employee?
No, she's a licensee. She's a licensed agent here in our office.
And is that an affiliate license or a broker license?
It's affiliate.
Okay. And do you expect Kaylee and Jana to continue working together should she get her license?
Yes, she would be teaming up with Jana and working under her as an agent in the office as her own team.
Yes, Mr. Sharp, when did Kaylee disclose to you the conviction on the cocaine?
Yeah, so the first information we had from that is when we received the application materials and we were submitting that to the state. That's when we were made aware of that and basically started gathering the reference information that we needed to submit along with the application. So that was the first conversation we had.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I just have one quick question. So you're licensed, Mr. Sharp, in Kentucky, Georgia and Tennessee, correct?
And also Alabama.
Okay, so how does that work? If one of your agents needs 16 hours of continuing education in Tennessee, do those same hours apply to a Georgia license, or are they separate?
It depends on the course, actually. So the course instructor would have to determine and file that course with the state of Georgia, just like they do with Tennessee, in order to earn credit. And then when the course is conducted, the instructor would gather both license information for both Tennessee and Georgia and submit it to the respective boards.
And that's pretty common, I suspect, right? Especially.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it is.
Jeff?
No, I was prepared to make a motion.
Okay. All right, Mr. Diaz is ready to make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we approve this candidate.
I have a motion by Mr. Diaz, seconded by Mr. Gwynn, that Ms. Kaylee's application be allowed to proceed so that she can get her license and be a good, productive agent for Keller Williams in Chattanooga. Discussion on the motion. If not, if you're in favor of that motion, vote aye.
Aye.
If you're opposed, vote no. And the motion passes unanimously. Best of luck to you.
Thank you so much for your time.
All right, next up is...
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Next up is Alicia Harm, which is in our iPad candidate B. So if you want to pull that up real quick. Okay, Caitlin, I'm sorry.
Okay, before you have applicant Alicia Harm and her principal broker, Miss Landry. Ms. Harm has taken the Tennessee Real Estate Affiliate Broker exam. The principal broker has been licensed as a broker since January 6, 2020, and first licensed in March of 2003. The firm is LRTN LLC, doing business as Life Realtors. A summary of the criminal and disciplinary sanction is a misdemeanor theft of property. A statement and a letter of recommendation can be found within your packet.
Thank you, Caitlin. So, Ms. Harm, you saw how that last one went, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so at this point, the floor is yours to tell us about the event, what's happened since the event, your wishes, desires, goals, anything that will help us out.
Okay. Well, the theft happened about 10 years ago. So a lot of time has passed since then. It was just a mistake on my part. And I just, I don't know, but I look forward to working real estate. I hope that it's nothing that's held against me since it did happen so long ago. And that's about it. I don't know what else to say about it.
Well, that's a start. We'll see if people have questions.
Okay.
Commissioners. All right, apparently what you submitted has been helpful. Let's go to your broker. Miss Landry, is it Dana or Dana?
It's Dana.
Dana. Tell us what you know about Ms. Hahn and why you'd like to have her affiliated with your firm.
Miss Harm came to me from another associate in our, another agent in our firm, and she's wanted to join his team. And so I've known him as an agent for quite a while. He's a hard worker. Alicia, I know she's going to be the same way, and she's a single mom. And as we all know, that gives us motivation to get things done and to, to be the best person that we can be. So I know Alicia is going to be an asset to our firm and to the real estate community and to anyone that she represents.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions? If not, is there a motion? Mr. Gwynn?
Okay.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Gwynn, seconded by Mr. Moffitt, that Ms. Harm be allowed to get her real estate license. If you're in favor of that motion, you'll vote aye.
Aye.
If you're opposed, vote no. And the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Harm. Thank you, Ms. Landry. Good luck to both of you.
I have a question.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we have one
Well,
question.
it's not for her. It's for Caitlin.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, get to work.
I thought after 10 years they didn't have to come before us.
We go off of the last date.
Date.
It's the last judgment date. So a lot of times maybe they were arrested 2 years before they were ever actually, so we have to go off the last. It's 10 years from the last date. But I had one recently where it was 2 years before the judgment, actually, from arrest date to, yeah.
And the end date for this one is 2014.
All right, next up, Mr. Hodge, Sean Hodge, and broker Todd Smith.
Okay.
Okay. You've got this candidate C in your tablet, Caitlin.
Mr. Hodge has taken the Tennessee Real Estate Timeshare Salesperson exam. His principal broker, Todd Smith, has been a broker since 1999 and first licensed in 1990. The firm is Blue Green Corporation, and a summary of the criminal and disciplinary sanction is misdemeanor theft of property. A statement and letter recommendation can be found within your packet.
All right. Mr. Hodge, tell us what you'd like for us to hear.
Pretty much, I was just living ignorantly. I was just not paying attention to my actions, and I'm just a different person now. I'm very calculated. I don't go off of people's word of mouth anymore. I have a 5-year-old son, and like everyone else, it's been like a while for me. So I've learned a lot since then, and I'm just ready to move forward.
So in this particular case, you were selling merchandise online. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And what happened? This is what I mean.
I was doing like drop shipping, and at the time I was playing basketball like overseas, and I didn't really have enough time to really pay attention to like the whole thing, how I was working, how I was operating. And I had partners, and one of my partners got a hold of some like stolen stuff that he had bought from someone else. But unfortunately, it's all on my account, and I took full accountability because that's just how I am. I would never just put that off on someone else. I'm solely to blame. I take full accountability of it, and that's it. I honestly didn't even know it was like still on my record. I've had a job since then. I used to do marketing for this company in Gatlinburg, so I would have actually like took action to get it all off my record if I had known that it was still on there.
We used to have a commissioner who seemed to ask every applicant if that applicant had thought about getting his record expunged.
Yeah, sometimes it's like kind of misleading. You think like after it's all over, you think it's like expunged, but I think you have to go back and get the expungement afterwards for like an additional price or additional court. I can't really remember, but I think now it's changed since then. I think I can just go in there January and just pay it off.
All right, questions for Mr. Hodge? Jeff?
So you paid your restitution. You're no longer under any kind of court supervision?
Yes, sir. I paid it off.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Smith.
Yes, sir.
Tell us why you got Sean.
Yes, sir. I sure will. Sean started in our process. He was recruited by another associate here locally back in September. He started into our process in October, and he's actually done everything we've asked him to do as far as trying to become a candidate to work for Blue Green on the Blue Green team. He was interviewed extensively by 4 of our leadership team, and he's been very transparent about his actions since the application. As he just mentioned, he's made restitution for those actions. And what we see in Sean is he's great with people. He's as I said, been very punctual over the last couple of months, adhering and learning our product and learning the ethics that goes along with it. And personally, what I saw in my interviews with Sean and spending a little time with him, what I see in him is that when we talk about the personal side, what's important to him is his 5-year-old, his parenting plan, and the accountability for being a good role model for that 5-year-old. And he sure don't want to mess up his parenting plan to be able to that holds him accountable more than anything, is being a good role model to his son.
So, Mr. Smith, I've always been confused about timeshares. Is Sean going to be an acquisition agent, or where does he fit into the?
I've been the principal broker at Laurel Crest. He's at Laurel Crest Resort. He will be working with our member services team there. He's going to be speaking with guests, primarily with guests that are using their ownership at our resort at Laurel Crest in Pigeon Forge.
Oh, it's none of my business. You can tell me so. Will he be an employee or independent contractor?
No, he will be an employee. Blue Green, all of our sales associates are employees of the company. Unlike a lot of other companies, he will fully participate as an employee and operate paid on a W-2 and be able to participate in the Blue Green benefits package.
Thank you. Other questions? If not, a motion?
Motion to approve this candidate.
Motion by Mr. Diaz, seconded by Ms. Torbett, that Mr. Hodge be allowed to go ahead and get that license and get to work. Discussion? Let's vote. Those in favor of the motion vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed vote no. And that motion passes unanimously. Mr. Smith, now off the topic for just a minute. So I asked this question last month of a timeshare broker, and he said you can't hardly stir him with a stick up in Sevier County. Is that right?
My wife and I, we kind of get on an island when we come to our resorts every day. We go from home to the resort and we don't see what's going on in the area. My wife and I on Sunday rode through downtown Gatlinburg, and it's November the 7th, and I've worked right here in Sevier County in timeshare for 30 years, and I'm telling you, there was a 45-minute wait to get on Anakeesta to go see the top of that attraction where Sean used to work. There was more than a 30-minute wait. Everybody knows the Skylift in downtown Gatlinburg. Well, now the Skylift at the top of that mountain has their suspension bridge, and that's incredible. There was a 45-minute wait for that, and then I sit at the Cherokee Grill and had brunch and listening to 2 couples get to know each other, and they're talking about buying a second home up here because Gatlinburg is the number 1 second home place right now to purchase a second home in America. So yes, it's like 4th of July around Gatlinburg right now.
So do you worry that Sean won't be able to get from Alcoa to the job site each day? I mean, traffic's so bad.
Well, he can get here in the morning. A lot of folks that come from distances like Knoxville and Maryville say, well, it takes me 40 minutes to get to work and an hour and 40 minutes to get home.
Well, best of luck to both of you. Thanks for what you do.
All right. Thank you all so much.
All right. Next up, John Carlson and his broker, Sue AC. And Sue, I'll ask you that same question in a little bit and see what you say about it. Caitlin, we're candidate D on the tablet.
Before you have applicant John Carlson and his principal broker, Sue AC. He has not yet taken the Tennessee Real Estate Timeshare Salesperson exam. or at least as of this write-up. His principal broker, Sue AC, has been the broker since 2014 and was first licensed in 2002. The firm is Wyndham Vacation Resorts, Inc., Smoky Mountain. A summary of the criminal and disciplinary sanction is felony false claim upon United States. A statement and letter of recommendation can be found in your packet.
Okay, John, this is a federal charge. Can you tell us what happened?
Yes, sir. Committee, thank you for the opportunity. Thanks for the time today. It is a federal charge. It's been a dark stain, a dark period for the last 10 years, and I've always owned it. I've always tried to keep moving forward through it and take responsibility for it. The circumstances are that it actually goes back to 2008. I had a new accounting firm, and they prepared my 2008 and a few years prior returns in advance of trying to sit for the bar. So I went through that process with the accountants. They prepared the returns. The IRS came back and said that they're not going to accept them, and we made effort to amend them, but they wouldn't accept the amended returns. And so little did I know that it was no longer the administrative process. It had already gone through the criminal referral. And so in 2008 or 2012, I was indicted. I also didn't know that my accounting firm was under investigation. So the district attorney offered a plea agreement in exchange for cooperation, which I accepted, and part of that was, again, as I do today, the acceptance of responsibility. I should have been, and I could have been, I needed to be more diligent with the accounting firm, because I guess the returns that they were proposing sounded too good to be true. And so I, in the legal sense of the colloquy, I recklessly turned a blind eye to what I should have paid more careful attention to. It was the next 4 years was the government made an effort to imprison and convict my accounting firm, which they ultimately did. I was given 24 months of probation, along with full payment of restitution back, and I served 13 months of that. I had to serve 12 minimum, and at the 13-month mark, Judge Silver released me of those obligations because I paid off all the restitution and the payments and obligations. So I met that obligation in 2017, although it predates back to an event, that's the 2008 filing. So it was a challenging decade. I lost friends, I lost family, and it caused me to rethink how I do business and turning square corners and just trying to be above reproach and be more diligent and ask more questions. So I did take the exam, and I did pass that for the record. So squeaked by with a 94, as I told Sue. A friend of mine introduced me to the opportunity to. I started a biotech company in 2010. I had about 300 distributors, and it was a very successful event, but my leadership was marred by my then later indictment. So I ended up taking down and taking a lesser role in the company, protect the company. And that was difficult as the founder, but I knew to protect it. That's what I should do for the staff and employees and their livelihood. But the educational component of what I did and the teaching and training was invigorating and exciting and dynamic. A friend of mine introduced me to the Wyndham opportunity here. I'm still living in Chattanooga, but if I have the opportunity, by the grace of the committee, I'll end up moving up to Sevierville or Knoxville. But, you know, when I was introduced to the Wyndham opportunity as an in-house, I felt like I had the same opportunity to help educate consumers on how to use a product they already own and already love, to use it better and to get more value out of it. And I remember when Mike is my boss's boss, he was giving a teaching training. He asked me to stand up the first day. And I likened the camaraderie within the organization to that of the Marine Corps, which I'd served for 10 years in. It was optimistic, it was positive, it was supportive, and I just felt like it was an organization that I wanted to be part of. So thanks for the opportunity.
All right, Commissioners, questions? John, did you say you were in the Marine Corps, or did you say supervisor was in the Marine Corps?
No, sir. I was about almost 10 years in the Marine Corps.
Oh, I think it's happy birthday, right?
Happy birthday, December 5.
Okay, just checking.
Sure.
Make sure. All right, stand by. If there are no questions, Steve Gwynn, go ahead, Commissioner.
Yes. You said here in your application you made restitution for $40,000. Was that the amount of tax that you should have paid that you didn't pay as a result of the inaccurate returns, or was that a fine, or what was that?
Yes, sir. Thank you. That was a balance of the fines and the penalties and the amount that I owed back for that. So yes, sir. And I paid that back at month 12, and I had told Judge Silver that I was going to get this done in 12 months, and I did. And in the 13 months when I had met all the obligations, the probation officer recommended that I be released of all obligations, and Judge Silver agreed. If I may add, this was in Veterans Court. Unfortunately, Veterans Court stood up after my indictment, but it was a fantastic program for veterans who fall into some of the same traps that I fell into. And I stayed around voluntarily and showed up every week at court, and was able to proctor and mentor, and I think be of use to some of the guys who are going through, who are struggling with probation. I've always tried to stay involved in my community. I served as Team Rubicon for the last 5-6 years on disaster relief, both as a heavy equipment operator, as a chainsaw instructor. So that community involvement has always been part of me, and that teaching process has always been a part of me. And I pray that the committee allows me the opportunity to be a good friend in Tennessee.
Was this for multiple tax years, or was it for one year?
It was so the accountant filed for 4 years simultaneously, so it was essentially one event. But they filed for 4 years, and then the initial charge was filing a fraudulent return. And to be fair, I struggled with the willfulness component to that. But in hindsight, very little in life is too good to be true. And had I done more due diligence, I would have seen the returns for what they were. But once I signed those first returns that went into the mail, the crime was committed, and no amount of amending was going to fix that. So the time you sign and send, that's when it happens. And anyway, I ended up pleading to a single false claim, and that's why exactly my attorney negotiated, I'm not sure, but there is a typo in my letter to you, to the committee. I said it does not muddy the waters, but it does muddy the waters because it was a tax issue that then got converted over into a false claim against the government. So not that either are good. I'm ashamed of both, but that's how it went from the tax to the false claim.
Questions? Thank you, John. Sue?
Yes.
You know the routine. Give us your comments on why you think he'd be a good fit with your company. Get up close.
Well, I met him when he came to apply for,
Sue,
when he came to apply for the license.
Sue, I need you to get closer. It's tinny or it's not clear. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Better, thank you.
I feel like I'm Verizon. Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay. I met John when he came to apply for his license here at Wyndham, and I heard his story, and as you know, I have a lot of people that come in that I don't bring to y'all. And after hearing his story, I thought that he would be a really good fit for us. And after reading his recommendations, I thought he was the hero. But I think he would make a very good employee. I think we would be lucky to have him. He's very active in his community.
Did you say he would be an employee?
I think he would make a better place.
Oh, will he be an employee, Sue?
Yes, sir.
And what role?
We're like Blue Green. We don't have people that aren't employees. All of our people are on W-2s.
Questions for Ms. Acey? If not, discussion. And if not discussion,
no question.
Stand by. See, I've got one for you after we vote.
Motion to approve this candidate.
Second.
Mr. Diaz makes a motion that Mr. Carlson be allowed to go ahead and get his timeshare license. Is that, we're going for timeshare, right?
Yes.
Okay. Seconded by Ms. Torbett. Discussion. See, we're ready to vote. If you're in favor of the motion, vote aye.
Aye.
If you're opposed, vote no. And that motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Carlson. You're with it. Part of my decision is because of who you're sitting with. She has a great reputation in this industry, and you need to make her proud. We don't need Sue to come back with you on a disciplinary issue, okay?
No, sir.
I don't think I'll be doing that.
And thank you all. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, you're welcome, and good luck. Sue, what's your take on the market up in Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge?
Well, I keep thinking it's going to slow down, but it hasn't. And I live about 2 miles from where I work, and it gets longer and longer every day to get home. It's taking me about 30 to 40 minutes to get home.
Good.
So we are packed up here.
That's good for you, right?
And I know I live up here, and I know my neighborhood, my condos have like doubled and tripled in value in the last 3 to 4 months. Oh. If y'all aren't up here, y'all need to be getting up here. The market up here is absolutely crazy.
That's what I keep
They
hearing.
have a lot of investors coming up that are coming in buying $1 million, $2 million homes, cabins and stuff. It's just going unbelievable.
If somebody could open up a new hotel up there, would it be okay? Would they do all right?
Well, I think Dolly's already doing that.
That's right. That's good. All right, guys. Thanks for coming in
We've got
today.
another one going up in another resort, and then we've got another timeshare group that's opening up on Teamster that's building 300 more units. So we're doing okay up here so far.
I'd say so. All right. Thanks, guys. Good luck to you, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I walked all the way over here to say, let's take a 10-minute break.
Oh.
At the end.
Consider start with Robert Cotto or Cotto.
Yes, and I will say at least, no. I think each of these is actually a medical waiver request, but it's not. The first one is for their E&O penalty, and then also their reinstatement late penalty, and then the other two are just related to their E&O suspension and medically being unable to renew their E&O. So the first one is licensee Robert Cotto. His license expired in August of 2021. His fee request is for a refund or to waive the $1,150 fee. $1,000 of that is due to E&O, and $150 is due to license expiration. He is an affiliate broker, currently expired. He now does have the E&O, and based on the not applicable education, I believe he is either grandfathered. There is no disciplinary history on his license. He is seeking the waiver, as I mentioned, of the E&O penalty and the reinstatement late penalty due to medical circumstances. He has submitted a letter and a doctor's note, which can be found in your documents.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Torbett, second by Mr. Hernandez, that Mr. Cotto's request be honored and he be refunded $1,150. Discussion.
$1,000 is statutory.
Yes, it's both in statute and rule that we get how we handle E&O expirations. Yeah, I believe he is one that was suspended on January 29th, and the penalty is $200 or $400 up until a certain point, and then from there it increases every month. It's just, yeah.
Oh, question.
Yes.
This is not a refund, is it? It's a waiver.
So
or has he paid the money?
So I believe his is just for us to waive. There is another one on here that has already paid it, and so in that circumstance it would be a refund. But we often tell them go ahead and pay the license fee because that's not going to get waived. But it looks like on this one he has not renewed, has not paid any of the late penalties. So this would be completely waiving. And then there's, I believe, the third one, or maybe even the second one, they did go ahead and pay. And so now they're coming back and saying, could I be refunded?
This one should be, I don't know if the motion was to refund or to waive, but this is a waiver.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So here's a related question. I assume we've sent a consent agreement to his broker because this guy didn't pay E&O.
So I'd have to look. Typically, it gets triggered when the licensee reaches out because we can't really determine what the penalty would be against the broker until we know at what date they comply.
Well, this guy, the broker, would have had a $1,000 penalty, right? Failure to supervise?
Yes.
Regardless of the amount. So my question, I think, is if we waive or refund, does that somehow also apply to the broker who may have been? And Ms. Matlock has an answer.
There's no.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
No. It waives their amount that they have to pay, but the infraction still remains. The broker failed to supervise their affiliate, so that doesn't impact their consent order.
Want that for the record, thank you. All right, the motion on the floor is to waive cumulative fine of $1,150. Any other discussion? Not a fine. Is it a fine, civil penalty, whatever you want to call it, to waive that amount? If you're in favor of the motion, vote aye. Aye. If you're opposed, vote no. That motion passes unanimously. Ms. Hernandez is next. Caitlin.
Okay. Ms. Hernandez is a somewhat similar situation where she was suspended due to E&O insurance. She is requesting a waiver of the $900 penalty. She has now gotten the E&O and does not have any disciplinary action. She's requesting a waiver of the $900, and she's essentially outlined why she submitted the request. First license in June of 2020.
Commissioners. Motion by Mr. Diaz, seconded by Ms. Torbett, that Ms. Hernandez's request be honored and a $900 civil penalty be waived, or fee, $900 fee be waived. Discussion. If you're in favor of that motion, vote aye.
Aye.
If you're opposed, vote no. That motion passes unanimously. And finally, Ms. Irwin.
And this one would be a refund. This licensee has already paid the $600 and does not expire until February of 2023. They've met all requirements. She has submitted a letter explaining her circumstances and is requesting a refund of the $600 for the E&O penalty.
Motion by Mr. Diaz, seconded by Mr. Moffitt, that Ms. Irwin's request be honored and the $600 refunded. Discussion. Let's vote. If you're in favor of that motion, vote aye.
Aye.
If you're opposed, vote no. And that motion passes unanimously. Any others, Caitlin?
That is it for our waiver request.
You see a trend of more and more requests, or what's your
It does seem like this past year we've had a more and more E&O waiver request. Not necessarily more license expiration medical waiver request, but I believe this month and the last couple of months, it seems like because of the E&O, which part of me wonders if it has to do with all notices are sent to the firm office. And I just wonder if that has played a part with people's business practices changing within the last couple years.
Watching it. All right, next up is the Education Director's report. Mr. White, good morning.
Mr. Chairman, good morning. Good morning, members of the Commission. I have before you today the November 10th education agenda, and I have reviewed all the providers, courses, and instructors on your agenda today. I find that they do comport with the law and the rules. Looking for your approval and review of those for N1 through N17.
All right, Commissioners, a motion to accept the Director's recommendation and approve courses N1 through N17. So moved. Mr. Ferris makes a motion. Mr. Diaz seconds that motion. Discussion. Let's vote. Those in favor of the motion vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. That motion passes unanimously. And Mr. White, you've got one instructor that's new to us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'd like to. One instructor on your iPads today.
Motion by Ms. Diaz, seconded by Mr. Ferris, that the recommendation of the Education Director be accepted and this instructor be approved to teach in Tennessee. If you're in favor of that motion, vote aye.
Aye.
If you're opposed, vote no. The motion passes unanimously. What else do you have, Ross?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all we have for.
So I've got a question for you or for Anna or Caitlin, but this has to do with real estate companies getting involved in schools. So we talked about that last month a little bit with a firm, and you said at that time that they absolutely pledged that there was a separate entity and not related to that particular franchise.
That's correct.
Would you or Anna or Caitlin mind stating for the record when a real estate company, or under what circumstances, a real estate company can also have a real estate school?
I'll defer to Anna on the law and the rules. I just call the.
What's your speaker?
5- calling the Commission's attention to Rule 1260-05-.06, relationship with brokers. And in that, it will explain to you that no course in real estate, which is designed to satisfy our requirements, can be conducted in a facility which is also utilized for conducting business of a brokerage firm, and that no advertising in conjunction with that advertisement for the business of a broker or brokerage firm can take place. Additionally, no broker or brokerage firm shall use or cause to be used any facility in which a course in real estate designed to satisfy educational requirements can be conducted. So that's saying that they cannot conduct, the real estate business can't conduct a course within its walls, within its office. And to my knowledge, and all that I've reviewed, including last month's provider, that it's completely separate. We've kept a wall between the two, and everything that's in our catalog right now as far as approved courses and providers. So 2 points I'd like to make is, one, we have understood that there is a national business, real estate business, that's partnering with a national educational outfit. So while we've heard that, no courses have been submitted to TREC that I've reviewed along those lines. So I just want to make that statement. And we understand the rule and the law, and we try to keep these things separate to avoid conflict of interest. And that's the reason I think this rule came about. And so heretofore, I think we've all tried to live with that, and most providers understand that rule implicitly. There's no issue with it. and I just want to make that as a statement.
I don't guess there's anything to prohibit a real estate company working out reduced fees with a national education company for its agents. That would be okay.
They can work out anything like that as long as they're not submitting them for credit for under our law and rules. They can give training that may work for them to have certainly a national reputable company to help them within office to give training. There's no prohibition there against that. It's only when they're trying to offer for credit. And the second part is, though, that they need to open these things up to all licensees. They can't, if they expect to get credit for under our laws and rules, they have to open up to everybody. And the venue should be completely separate from the business of real estate.
So if, let's say, Century 21 had a local office here in Nashville, and they hired an educator who's got a course approved to come to their office to teach that course, can they do that?
No. That would be
okay.
They do it at the office next door and call it Century 21 School of Real Estate.
I think that begs a question of a conflict. I believe we'd have to have a complaint on that from someone, but it should be completely separate. And if they're offering credit hours, first of all, they have to be approved. You know, the provider has to be approved, the course has to be approved, the instructor has to be approved under our law. And if they offer that course across the street from the real estate business, I just don't think that's enough. Now, I can see where it could be, but it does sort of beg the question, is that a conflict of interest?
How does the virtual school fit into the equation? In other words, or does it matter? If you're an instructor, can you teach a course in somebody's real estate office if your internet isn't good, or can you take a course? In other words, see what I'm saying? In other words,
I do.
Is that? Don't worry about that.
That's a great question.
Oh.
But you know, I've had that come up in the last year or so, and I just tell them, no, you should not entertain the course in that real estate office. You need to go somewhere else to conduct that virtual meeting.
Okay.
Well, we'll keep paying attention to it because I think it's maybe a trend that's developing. I'm not sure, but it might be. Thank you. Appreciate it, Ross. Okay, Caitlin, we're to your report.
Hey, a couple of the updates I have, I think we should postpone. I keep on putting the 2022 calendar on there to talk about the August-September meeting, but I was hoping to get Marcia's take on the Aurello conference that's in August or September. So unless anybody wants to talk about that, I'll just push that subject off.
Well, for sure, January and February dates are set, correct?
January, February. Really, the only date in question is August, September, due to the conference being in Nashville as well and trying to coordinate our meeting with the conference.
So it's safe to say the first 6 months of next year are set.
I think it's
okay.
Safe.
We'll put the second 6 months off.
Yeah.
Okay.
The second item I wanted to bring to the Commission's attention is the TNX conference, which the Commission typically participates in a panel of questions, and we have coordinated that date to be when the Commission is meeting in February, and so I just wanted to put that date on everybody's radar. It would be the afternoon of the Commission meeting, and I thought we could coordinate. I can make sure the Commission has lunch so that there's plenty of time to meet and then attend the conference.
Just for the record, this is a voluntary appearance by the Real Estate Commission, individual members. And there's no requirement that you go. As a matter of fact, if you want to get a head start going home and we finished our agenda for the day, perfectly okay. Nobody's keeping track of this, and there's no requirement. If, on the other hand, you feel like you want to sit on a panel in front of 300 or 400 people and field some questions, that many of which have been already asked once before the same day, you can do that as well. All right.
Yeah, so that will be Tuesday, February 8th, and they've set us at 1 p.m. So I'll make sure we can order lunch to where there's plenty of time for, I don't want anybody passing out.
Thank you.
And then the third item is something that some of you may have heard of and some of you may not have heard of. It's a project that I've been working on, I think 3 years, maybe going on 4 years, and it's called CE Broker. It started as an idea to allow education providers to more directly submit education rosters and CE course submissions when a student has taken a course. Right now, providers submit that to our staff, who then submit it to our IT department and then upload it. And so it started out of this idea to allow them to do it in real time and also provide them more confirmation that they have the correct licensee, correct license number, that sort of thing. So we're nearing the finish line on the project. There's been some delays due to upgrades that are needed on our system. But I wanted to mention it because I have asked them to come to the February commission meeting to give the commission an overview of what it is and what it will look like. So it will allow providers a couple different options for uploading a group of licensees once they have taken a course with them. They can do it manually and confirm they have the right licensee. They can still do the roster submission, which they do now. And then it provides a couple other options. So I think providers will like it. I also think it will allow students to see, okay, this provider always uploads their CE within 24 hours of taking the course. So it does put some responsibility on the provider because they get badges and that sort of thing when they upload their courses quickly for those last minute licensees that take their course right before expiring. And then the other thing that it's going to do is it's going to help keep track of each licensee's CE. So it'll keep track of the requirements, and then it will essentially report back to our system to say, yes, they met the requirements, or no, they didn't. So that will help us not only on, just the 16 hours with the core course, but it will also help us with the 120 hours. So they will be here at the February meeting, but I just wanted to go ahead and give everybody kind of a briefing on what it is before they come in February. Any questions about that?
I got an overall question about our website whenever it's the right time to ask.
You picked the perfect time.
Perfect time. So in the we didn't get to talk about it last meeting, but in the Aurelio conference that I went to a month or two ago in Orlando, there was discussion and I think it was Oklahoma got an award for revamping their website and basically scrapped their old website and spent pretty much time during COVID to redo it. And so they talked a little bit about it. And I think Alabama had also done it, not maybe to the extent of Oklahoma, but had looked at there. So I know nothing about, what's kind of the history of our website? Is it good? Is it working? Have we revamped it in the last 5 years? Or what's kind of the thinking and status of our website? And
so I would
it's
say
a really open-ended question.
Yeah, I would say the website has been updated. I believe it was at the end of the Haslam administration. They did it's been since I have been with the department, which I am going on 6 years. So I could confidently say within the last 6 years it has been updated. I think what you might notice if you start looking around is they each, despite what department you're with, have the same look and feel, and the same, I don't know all the website lingo, but you'll notice at the top of each website, there are different tabs that have drop downs. They all have the same structure. So I'm happy to look at Oklahoma. I think most licensees get to our page by typing in Tennessee Real Estate Commission in Google, which is probably the easiest way because we are considered an umbrella agency, which means we're one big department with different divisions underneath. Whereas when you go to Arillo, not every state is set up that way. Like Texas, for example, they're standalone. So they're just the Texas Real Estate Commission. They're not connected to any other. They might be connected to like appraisers, but they're not connected like we are to insurance or to the state fire marshal's office. So we do have some limitations in that we are within a department that has many divisions, which there's obviously pros and cons to both. So I'm happy to go look at Oklahoma. And also, if anybody looks at it and there's anything specific that you would like to see different, we could definitely look into that too.
I would also look at Alabama.
Okay.
I talked to the.
Do you know was there anything particular you liked about Oklahoma or Alabama?
I just think it looked good. I mean, I think it was a visually good-looking, easy to figure out website, and I'm not saying ours is not like that. It just, it had pictures of people. It was a friendly-looking deal, and it wasn't, and I don't know the status of what theirs was prior to them doing it. Alabama won second, and I talked to the Alabama director, and he was very open and said, if you guys are looking at yours, give me a call. I'll help. And it was a very, very nice guy. So
I can definitely look into those, but if there's anything specific to that you want,
I think Oklahoma
look might be a little bit hard. Just
correct. Yes, I think Oklahoma used state IT people plus they hired a third-party vendor, so it was a combination of two different IT groups, if you will. Just a thought.
Other questions for Kate? Here are two questions. So, when are we going to be able to have these informal appearances in person? We're still working under some order of the governor at this point. Is that correct?
Yes, and I don't know that we would ever go back to the requirement that they come in person.
What if this commission wanted to go back to that?
I don't know that they would have that approval. Just one thing to put into consideration, and I know they're coming before the commission to be licensed, but let's just look at Sevierville. They would drive 8 hours to maybe spend 15 minutes talking to the commission. I think that goes into part of the ask is considering travel time, having, get a hotel, all of those things. So I don't know that the department would ever be in support of going back to the requirement. Now, anybody is welcome to obviously come to our meeting and present before the commission. But that's a unknown to me at this point.
Do you think the same is true of a formal hearing?
That would probably be more of a Anna question than a.
I think formal hearings are more dependent upon the judge. But for example, the one we were supposed to have scheduled today, if we had not done the agreed order, would have been in person. So it really just depends.
And that's set by the judge.
I get it on the formal hearing, but I think on informal appearances, and I haven't polled commissioners, obviously, but I would be surprised if most of us don't think that seeing an applicant in person helps us make a better decision than if we have to look at a screen. Just the chair's opinion at this point, but I just wondered if we're working under a governor's mandate, or is this the department saying it's okay if they do that?
I think it's both. I think it's probably both, but I think it's definitely the department's preference to be, you know, I don't know the word I'm looking for, to what, or just to be, you know, cognizant of what, you know, if the applicant wants to attend in person or virtually.
I'll shut up on this after this, but over the years, it's evolved. When I first got on the commission, this room would be full of licensees who, as part of their settlement with the department, agreed to attend a commission meeting. And generally, those people who came enjoyed it and learned. They didn't necessarily like it, but they enjoyed it and they learned. And we've gone away from that. And so I'm not trying to make our job easier or tougher, but if I have two people sitting here and they walk up and I can see their body language and I can ask them questions and really hear them, like one of the guys today I struggled to hear, it just makes sense to me that I'd rather do it in person. But I'm not starting a movement or anything. I just wondered if we're restrained, and if we are, by whom at this point. It sounds like maybe still the governor's order.
Where's the website? What does the manual say on
The rules?
the rules? Yes.
It just says that an individual has to appear before the commission with their principal broker. It does not say
In person. When was it? I mean, it was written prior to the ability to be able to not do it in person, right? So was it assumed that when it was written that it had to be in person because there was no other way to do it? I mean, it didn't allow for a telephone call, right?
there's nothing that would prevent it from being a telephone call.
Okay.
It's not specified in the rules. Check one more place.
Yeah, I agree that the ease of the virtual appearance has its merits, has its value, particularly from somebody who's at either end of the state. So I respect that and would have that appeal if I were over in East Tennessee or West Tennessee, and yet it does offer some level of gravity if I've got to go before the commission. It really might separate the wheat, the wheat from the chaff of people who are really serious about their career and coming here, and not about necessarily coming before the members of the commission, but the whole department. And I'm thinking about the broke, Sue AC, for her to come with somebody from there means she really values that person being in her organization. And so that's something to consider. And yet it's undeniable we're in an age where so much can be accomplished over online. So it's
I'm done talking about this. I just want to give a personal opinion. The last question I have for you, Caitlin, has to do with your staff and work environment. Are people slowly starting to work more at the building, less at home, or what's it look like these days?
I think for the foreseeable future, we're on an as business need. So we have a staff member here at least every other day. And that is to check the mail, to help people that come into the building, that sort of thing. And I don't necessarily foresee that changing unless the business need changes.
Your staff is happy with the situation.
Yes.
Do they think it's a penalty to have to come in? I mean, they're so comfortable
Now,
at home
I
now.
wouldn't say anybody's just itching and volunteering. But with our staff, it equals out to roughly like 1 day a month. So very manageable.
Any other questions for Caitlin? Jeff?
One more question. So you said something earlier about the cost of coming. The cost of coming to the commission meeting is borne by the sponsoring broker and the applicant, right? It's not something that Commerce and Insurance pays.
No. I guess I was just making the point that, it's not necessarily apples to apples if you are an applicant that lives in Nashville versus if you live in Johnson City. I just had one more item. The West Tennessee 2022 meeting, the Memphis Area Association of Realtors has invited us to have our West Tennessee meeting there in May. And I figured we were in Jackson last year, that I would go ahead and bring that to the commission if we wanted to formalize it.
Mr. Quinn, you want to make a motion?
Yes.
What is it?
Make a motion that we have our West Tennessee meeting in Memphis in May.
Mr. Diaz seconds that motion. Any discussion? Let's vote. Those in favor of the motion vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. That motion passes unanimously and appropriately. And it's pure coincidence, I guess, that it just showed up like that on your desk. Just pure coincidence.
Chairman, I got one more question.
Go right ahead.
On the testing, so 10,000, if I'm looking at this right, 10,708 people have tested. Is that right?
That's cumulative.
For the year.
For the year. And it also includes retakes.
Okay, so.
That's not necessarily one time or first time test takers.
So I was trying to figure out if you took 21 and added all those numbers up.
Of the new candidates?
Correct. 620, 567. You add it, haven't added it up, but let's say it's, a few thousand.
Let me see. I can probably add that up pretty quickly.
How do you get, in other words, it seems like it's taking many years for the pool to pass the test. Am I looking at that wrong, or they just give up, or what?
That doesn't necessarily include people that already have a license number and let their license expire over a year. So let's just say you let your license expire over a year and you had to retake the exam.
Mm-hmm.
You would be in the number under exams taken, but you would not be in the initial number above because it's a different transaction. Do you see what I mean?
Not really. The 10,708 is tests given to individual people, right?
Yes. And it also includes people retesting because they let their license expire. And that is a retest application.
So when those people retest, they're not in those application numbers in the chart above there, right?
Oh, yeah, that's what I was saying. The number above is applicants that are just starting out.
Okay.
in Tennessee.
Oh.
Whereas, so let me see for you.
That
Then the
just seems
bottom
like a
number
huge-
also includes, I mean, I could get the number from PSI of how many of those are first time test takers versus, second or third, but it's not completely uncommon with the pass rate as it is
Right.
that people take at least one portion of the exam more than once.
Okay. I think that number's right, that 10,708.
I
Think so?
got it from PSI.
Okay. No.
It for some reason I can add this up, but my chart is not transferring over to Excel to make it easy. I can report back to you as to how many are initial applicants versus
Retakers and then
Yes.
lapsers.
But I don't know that it's still going to give you exactly what you're looking for because the exam is good for 6 months. So just because somebody got their license in January of 2021, they might have taken the exam in June of 2020. So it's, or I guess they would have to take it in July of 2020. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Just because they show up in January,
Right.
they might have taken the exam the year prior.
Right. I'm just kind of thinking from the staff perspective. I mean, when somebody's taking the test, how long is the staff going to be dealing with them before they pass? It seems like it's, a couple, 3 years.
Well,
that they're in the system.
We
I don't know if that's.
Yeah. So if it's an initial applicant, they are not seeing us just yet because they take their pre-licensing courses and the pre-licensing provider sets them up to test. And it's not to say that we don't get applications that are not complete, but we have really worked hard to make sure that by the time somebody applies, they're ready to be licensed, so they have everything they need. So the education provider would put them in the system after they've taken the pre-license course. So we don't have to be involved except for, maybe they reach out and say, what do I need? But we always advise people to wait to apply until they have all of those requirements. And so in a perfect world, everybody that our staff is touching is taking both parts of the test, pass them, has their E&O, has their education, has their high school diploma, has everything. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Other questions? Thank you, Caitlin. We'll move on to the legal consent agenda and the legal report. And for the life of me, I can't remember. Do we approve the legal consent agenda just by case number? Is that what we're doing? Do we need that for the record, or can we just go straight to the report?
Just make a motion. The list that was sent, but for the numbers.
Is there such a motion?
Second.
Mr. Diaz makes a motion to adopt the legal consent agenda. Ms. Torbett seconds that motion. Discussion. Those in favor of the motion vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no, and that motion passes unanimously. Now we're on to the legal report, which includes 85 cases. And the chair would like to know if any commissioner wants to pull any cases. In that case, the chair has a few he wants to pull just to discuss, and they're not too significant. So let's pull 12, 37, 38, 70, 73, and 83. So 6 cases.
I'll add number 20 to that list.
And number 20, 7 cases. Others? With the exception of those 7 cases, then, is there a motion to accept council's recommendation on each of the balance of the cases?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Diaz, seconded by Ms. Torbett, to add cases 1 through 84. The recommendation of council be adopted with the exception of cases 12, 20, 37, 38, 70, 73, and 83. Discussion? If not, let's vote. If you're in favor of that motion, vote aye.
Aye.
If you're opposed, vote no. And the motion passes, and we're on to case 12. Dennis, good to see you. Morning. Oh, this is a case. It may just be me, but this is a case where a broker gave a buyer a key before the deal closed.
For the Dennis Gregory for the agency, I would say before. It's about timing, and I don't know that we really. It could be just a matter of hours. I think. So I think it's undisputed that because the respondent says it and the complainant, that's kind of what the whole basis of the complaint is that key was given to the buyers at a time before the deal was completely done. But I believe that, we'd almost have to know exactly when the funds were wired to know exactly when that, if the buyers would have had the impression that, well, we're free to go and start looking at our new house. So, which is what led me to the recommendation to close, but I'm open to,
So we know if the buyer's presence in the house the day of closing was part of their pre-closing walkthrough, because usually that's a contractual item where they get to do a pre-closing walkthrough, and thereby they would be perfectly within their rights to be in the house.
Well, in the last sentence of the first major paragraph, Jeff says that they got the key from the lockbox the evening before the walkthrough. That's what. Some things are pretty black and white to me, and one thing you don't do is give a key to a buyer before it closes. I mean, to me.
So we don't. That's not under dispute. They definitely got the key the night before.
That appears to be undisputed. Now, when they were in the house, that's more up for debate, which is kind of where which like I said, which led me to the conclusion of maybe there's just not enough there to say that the respondent breached any duty to any party, but
before,
right,
was before,
which was before the money, maybe within hours, but before.
All right, commissioners, you've heard my thoughts on it. Is there a motion?
Failure to.
That's typically what we put on this one.
I would make a motion for a letter of warning.
There's a motion offered by Ms. Torbett that the licensee be issued a letter of warning. Mr. Diaz seconds that. I'm sorry, Mr. Ferris seconds that motion.
I didn't second that.
Oh, John did, I guess. I'm sorry. I didn't see your lips move, but I thought I heard your voice. Okay, so the motion on the floor, properly made and seconded, is, if passed, we'll ask legal to send a letter of warning to the respondent. Discussion?
So the letter of warning would be telling them about exercising reasonable skill and care. Is that where it would go?
Correct.
Yeah, it's just the two members that represent the consumers on the board here make that choice. And I tend to vote for the motion.
Go anything for it. You've got the floor if you wanted to make a substitute motion.
At a $500 fine.
Well, that would go against the letter of warning.
Well, no, this is a substitute motion. Let's see if we can get a second to it.
Second.
So I've got a second to the substitute motion. So procedurally, we'll vote on the substitute motion. If it passes, we're done. If it fails, we'll go back to the original motion. Now, discussion on the substitute motion.
I would just offer briefly that that is a good catch by the chairman on this case, and that is not a good practice. It was not exercising diligence, and unless it was contractually agreed upon by everybody, and the seller knew, and the listing agent knew, and there are terms in which that could occur. and it does not seem that there were that agreement. And so I support Commissioner Begley's motion for a $500 fine and a letter of warning.
Not separate. Yeah. Just right now, the only thing in front of us is $500 civil penalty.
Yes, I agree. I approve that.
And it's still for
failure to exercise reasonable skill and care. Further discussion. Steve?
The only thing I'm kind of thinking about this is I'm the agent. I don't know what his or her commission was on it. It seems kind of, if the commission was $1,500 and, they paid tax on it, and so a $500 fee, I guess, is probably deductible from their income tax. So basically, that it could be that a $500 fee versus a letter of warning wipes out their effort on that transaction. I don't know that. It could be a $1 million house, but so I'm probably not going to support the $500 fee and go back to the letter of warning.
Well, it's
I know that.
It's not about if they get paid. It's the
But-
fact that what if, whose insurance is covering if they walked in and fell down and killed themselves and they hadn't, broke their neck down the stairs and the house hasn't closed, what happens at that point?
Well, the insurance.
Whose insurance?
The buyer's insurance, probably, I don't know when it takes place from a timing standpoint.
You've just gotten a little bit lax in our profession of,
right.
What's right. What they're supposed to do and not supposed to do. And you're not supposed to give out keys to anybody that's not a licensed agent. You can't give out your lockbox key. You can't give out your codes. So it sounds like they did it the night before.
May I ask a question to council about this email that the title company acknowledges, because it says, respondent does not deny giving the key to the buyers. However, he is adamant the buyers only receive the keys after all loan documents were signed and all funds were wired. And email from the title company confirms this. Can you offer any more details on that? Or
I would need to pull up we can pull it up right here, and I can review what it would be in the respondent response.
This could be just a case of the seller is, as many sellers are, they get emotional about the sale. It didn't go smooth. Maybe they feel like any number of reasons. They go buy the house, the buyer's there, the money hadn't hit their account, and they said, "What the heck?" It might have been that deal, and this agent may have been.
And I agree, DJ. The fact that usually the walkthrough comes before the money's transferred, and both parties agree that they got the key prior to walkthrough in the above paragraph. So both parties say we gave the key before the walkthrough. There's no reason to do a walkthrough if you've already wired the money. It's a done.
Yeah, because when the buyer, it's just the respondent. Now that I read it again, I've went on one end, I've been on the other end. Now I'm back to where the respondent is trying to cover his tail. It looks like, Right. The buyer. Yeah.
So
it doesn't say that they went in the house with the key.
too many unknowns for me, honestly.
Right. So what we have is a good discussion on a topic that, in my opinion, and I'm a commercial broker, not a residential broker, but it always appears to me that it's laziness on the part of the buyer's agent, so they don't have to go back and give the key to them later. They just give it to them a little bit early. Don't tell anybody I gave it to you kind of situation. And I think it opens the door for all kinds of situations. We've had cases of people moving stuff into the garage, into the house, the owner didn't know it. I think it's pretty black and white. You better not give possession without permission prior to the dang closing.
Agreed.
With that said, we have a substitute motion on the floor that we've been discussing, that if 4 people or more vote for, we'll offer this respondent a $500 civil penalty.
I'll add one more thing, Mr. Chairman. I don't know whether this is going to throw everything off path, but the Mr. Ferris, you were asking about the email from the title company. That email says lender's wire hit at 11:18 a.m. on August 10th. Well, that's when the walkthrough was scheduled, was for August 10th. So, assuming that was also the same day of closing, the funds
It says closing was the next day.
So the closing was the next day. So the funding hit the day prior, or the wire hit the day prior. So maybe
we think by extension the money hit, so the paperwork was done. I mean, sometimes the transaction's financed before they do the paperwork.
Right. And going back to the respondent's response, I mean, and she says, he says, I'm not sure which.
Yeah, I mean, the respondent just should not have given them the key.
She talks about the issue I was trying to raise is that she talks about there was a breakdown of communication. I think, in other words, she probably gave the key too soon.
Yeah. All right. We've got to keep moving. Let's. Any further discussion on the substitute motion, which is $500 civil penalty offer? All right. Caitlin, let's roll call this. I like to do at least one of those every once in a while. If you're in favor of the motion, you'll vote yes. If you're opposed, you'll vote no.
Commissioner Begley.
Yes.
Commissioner Diaz.
Yes.
Commissioner Ferris.
Yes.
Commissioner Gwynn.
No.
Commissioner Moffitt.
No.
Commissioner Torbett.
No.
Chairman Grease.
Yes.
4-3.
Motion passes on a 4-aye, 3 no votes. The minutes will reflect who voted no, correct? Or aye, either way. I don't care. Either way.
Yes.
Okay, DJ, we're on to number 20.
Number 20, and Council, I think your summary here where the seller might have decided to not sell this property irregardless of not checking the accept box on the contract, I think that is true. And yet the respondent could have shown better diligence in exercising just basically a better practice of real estate to get everything checked and accept, T's crossed, I's dotted. And I just believe a letter of warning is at hand to make sure when you get a contract in hand and people are accepting it, that it gets signed, the boxes are checked, pages are initialed, the binding agreement date is filled in, you name it. And there's nothing left out, because this happens. I have seen this happen where deals, the people can get off the hook from things like this, and and they might still have gotten off the hook, but they would have had to at the agreement of all parties. And it's clear the complainant was not agreeable to that because they wanted to buy it. So that's all I have to say about this case, and would make a motion that a letter of warning is sent to the respondent for failing to exercise diligence.
Second.
All right, second was by Mr. Diaz. Discussion. The motion on the floor is to authorize counsel to send a letter of warning to the respondent, emphasizing the importance of paying attention to detail. Discussion. Let's vote. Those in favor of that motion vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. That motion passes unanimously. Number 37. I agree with the recommendation. This is a case where an affiliate of a principal broker was advertising, I guess, without the help or supervision of his or her principal broker. And at some point, it came to the principal broker's attention, perhaps when the complaint was filed. I'm not sure.
Yes.
So I'm curious. This is yours, right, Pam? Good. So why not $1,000 instead of 500?
Appropriate.
Oh, if we said $1,000, you'd be okay with that.
Yes.
It's just an interpretation. We all agree. I mean, I agree with you that your interpretation is correct. I was just curious if there was some mitigating factor that kept it from being the maximum.
No, that's not. The only mitigating factor I would say with respect to that is that when the advertising, the incorrect postings originated was actually prior to this affiliate's affiliation with the, but it continued on after the affiliate went to this firm. Several months, about 6 months.
Yes, please.
Make a motion to change the fee from 500 to 1,000 for this case.
The motion on the floor offered by Mr. Diaz, seconded by Ms. Torbett, if passed, will authorize a $1,000 civil penalty as opposed to the 500 recommended by council. Discussion? Yes, go ahead.
I guess this is for the attorneys in the room. I'm looking at the disciplinary history of this principal broker. Is there a threshold in statute or in the rules that say, okay, you're not, because of your disciplinary history, you're no longer entitled to have the privilege of having a license, or is that the tolerance of the commission, or?
There's nothing like that.
Nothing in the statute.
Unless there is a consent order or an order from a judge.
Okay, you've heard the motion. Any other discussion? If you're in favor of the motion, which will increase the civil penalty of $1,000 if accepted, please vote aye.
Aye.
If you're opposed, vote no. That motion passes unanimously. All right, number 38. This is a situation where a contract says one thing and the principal broker does something else with the earnest money. Is that succinct enough, or is that too?
I think that the buyer was the one who actually sent the earnest money check to the wrong recipient. However, the principal broker, somehow or another, they ended up just depositing it into their own trust account, and then it didn't get disbursed to where it should have gone. It didn't get returned to the buyer who wrote the check, and just kind of mysteriously stayed in their trust account for a month.
I don't like that either, but the contract says it was going to be deposited, let's just say, with the selling agency's firm, and yet the buyer sends the check to the listing agency's firm. Did that happen? Did I get that right?
I think that, yeah, I think that describes
At which point the listing agency deposits it into their escrow account. So I would think a good business practice typically would be for the broker to make sure that the contract matches what he's going to do with some money. That's one issue. And then the other issue was, once it was discovered, it seemed to take a long, long time to get the money back to the buyer. So once again, I don't dispute your findings. I concur with them, but I'm not sure if $500 is enough for those two different issues. So the floor is open.
Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Move that we accept council's recommendation, but change the fine to $1,000.
For a second. Mr. Begley seconds that motion. Now discussion.
I agree with the motion. It appears that the complainant from another firm was seeking to have accurate escrow records when the deal was already done. I mean, that's the level of diligence we ought to hope to see everyone adhere to. And I mean, for that check to come in based on the contract to their escrow account and then clear back out to the buyer, so the respondent ought to have this fine.
Okay, other discussion. Motion is to accept council's recommendation modified to offer a civil penalty of $1,000, not $500. If you're in favor of that motion, vote aye.
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 If you're opposed, vote no. That motion passes unanimously. We're going to go to number 70 next, but before we do that, Pam, I noticed a couple times you talked about people filing an instant complaint. What is that?
Oh, it's legalese, I suppose. It means this complaint, the one we're talking about right now.
So an instant complaint is a legal term that means
right now
they file it just that quick, or does it?
No, like if you were preparing a legal brief or something of that nature, and you were talking about different cases to the judge, and you're going back and talking about, hey, this is the one that's on the table. That's just the way you say it. The instant case. The instant.
Trying to learn your language as much as I can. All right, number 70. I asked to be pulled, and I'm okay with it. I hope somebody makes a motion to accept council's recommendation. However, I would like to have just a short discussion. This has to do with a billboard, apparently, where somebody says, I'll make you an offer to buy your house in 24 hours or something along those lines. Is that right, Pam?
Yes. Get a guaranteed offer on your home today, and that's it.
Does it matter in your recommendation that was a billboard or a piece of printed material or an internet advertisement?
It matters to me that it was advertising.
Okay, so council's position is if they're going to advertise that, they have to have all the details of the offer on the face of the advertisement. And this did not, and that's why you're recommending.
To have the pertinent details on the face of the offer advertisement. Doesn't mean they have to have the extent of it, but there has to be something to more than than nothing to explain on the face of the advertisement, you know, what actually are the terms of the agreement, or the terms of the offer, the guarantee.
So I want to pull this because it seems to me this is an increasing trend. People just saying, I'll buy your home or give you an offer in 24 hours. And the point is they can't just say that. They've got to have a lot of detail to go with it to be legal.
You have to have some pertinent details that would let the person who's viewing the advertising know what is actually goes into that. This particular content admits that's just billboards just are not equipped to state all of that in text, which I think is what the issue is.
Recommended a $2,000 fine because there are two different billboards were sent.
Correct.
John.
I got a question about Mark Spain is advertised on TV. I see billboards with his name on it in Florida, Georgia, here. What's the difference?
I can say that this is not the only complaint or case that I have seen that has addressed this particular issue. So, you know, that's one that, you know, may have been before the commission, that the commission
Still
has
doing
addressed.
it every day
Yeah.
in Florida and here. I know. I just got back from Florida.
Ryder. So I think I just wanted to have this short discussion just to put it on the radar that you can't just do that. Yes.
Yeah, family. My recollection from the statute is it doesn't tell us what pertinent details are.
Correct.
So it's a subjective kind of well, that seems like it's thorough enough to satisfy the consumer's need to know.
Correct. I mean,
Okay.
certainly the lack of any details in this particular case, I would say that particular rule is implicated.
Right, and the rule doesn't allow for redirecting the consumer to a website or some other source on these media is sufficient.
It seems to me somewhere like when you offer a guarantee that maybe it's in a rule, but I think it says it has to be awfully specific. On the face of it, everything that goes into that guarantee has to be included.
Let's disclose all pertinent details. If there's anything else.
Kind of moot for this case because there are no details, but
Exactly.
But in terms of the overall practice of advertising on billboards, if you say pertinent details, are we talking 3 bullet items? Are we talking, the back of a? I just want to know to what extent, where do we hit the threshold of pertinent details?
The extent of the rule that addresses it states any offer, guarantee, warranty, or the like made to induce an individual to enter into an agency relationship or contract made in writing and must disclose all pertinent details on the face of such offer or advertisement. It doesn't distinguish the type of advertisement or the extent of the details other than the pertinent ones, which I would interpret as pertinent being material.
No lawyers like to be in the realm of the hypothetical, but so if you were to make that offer and say up to a certain dollar amount, I mean, would that on its face satisfy the pertinent detail? I mean, it doesn't sound like it's enough, but
we're talking about a hypothetical here. I have to have something in front of me, so lots of caveats there. But but to me, if this particular billboard said, had that additional 2 words or 3 words up to, $1,000, I think my interpretation would be that they still don't have all the details that would be pertinent to this particular offer.
I've always thought about it. If somebody advertises, if I don't sell your home, I'll buy it. Let's just say, take it off this offer. Then on that advertising, it needs to say, well, there's some conditions like it's subject to an appraisal, and I'm only going to give you 80% of what it appraised for, and you've got to pay for a home inspection to do it, and you have to close at a certain title company, and you have to let me carry the paper, or you carry the paper for 6 months while I try. All those things have to be included in that.
And just so I can try to close another loophole that might be exploited, if they were to say, get an offer on your home guaranteed, and then in fine print somewhere on the billboard, terms and conditions apply, inquire within. That doesn't meet the statute either. Then
I could say that I am familiar with another case that has been before. Still $1,000. So I would say that would not to not find that to be a violation would be inconsistent with that case.
A question: if pays the fine, leaves the billboard up 3 months from now, it's still the same. Can he be fined again for the same billboard, or is it kind of like only once for the bad? So if he's paid for a 12-month billboard or whatever, I mean, is he going to get every month they can report him, or is it?
Ask this commission.
Okay.
Better if somebody reports it again and the respondent says, well, I'm trying to get it taken care of, and he can show proof it is, I'd feel better about it than if it just stays up there and it's a cost of doing business, which is what I suspect it might be looked at as. All right, the motion's on the floor.
Question.
Yes, I'm sorry, Steve.
How do we know there's only 2?
Well, that's all that the complainant has addressed.
Okay.
So we have, that's what we have to deal with because we're talking about disciplinary action as it pertains to the evidence that we've got in front of us for this complaint.
You talked to the respondent, or was this information we got from him or her in writing? In other words, that answer of unfortunately billboards are not equipped to state all that text on it is a rhetorical answer. I mean, of course it doesn't.
It was a part of the respondent's written response.
But I'd be interested to hear the members and the council put a bow on this, if you will, about what type of guidance we could give the industry and and licensee holders regarding billboards. And Commissioner Diaz, I was hitting at that, in my opinion, about, can we say, or can members say, or not members, can licensee holders say other terms and conditions apply? And I'm good. Or is this something that has to come through the legislature to affect the statute, which is a long process? Because this has come up, the chairman has been diligent in bringing it up before, and I'm like, Commissioner Moffitt, you see these things and you're like, just meh, and it puts just kind of a perception about those brokerages for the public, and even members of the industry. You kind of hold it suspect, and it's like, not all that glitters is gold. But if there could be a guidance from the commission on include these to give the consumer some expectation of like what some of the terms that the chairman said. Anyway, any thoughts on that? Now, maybe today's not the forum, but I would be my interest in seeing some guidance set forth for the practice of this. So billboards are, they're good. I mean, it can be helpful, but it needs to protect the consumer.
So, we need to move on probably, but really, always in a case like that situation, would refer the agent to his or her principal broker. I mean, that's where the buck stops. It's not necessarily with us; it's their interpretation. And if the principal broker wants to say a little asterisk in the corner that says additional terms and conditions apply, let the broker make that case. But I don't know that we can be specific and give guidance, because as soon as we do, somebody will find an end run around it. I promise you. But we can put it on next January's agenda if you'd like, and we can talk about it some more. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Is there a motion, Chairman? Do you need one?
I think do I have a motion? It's been so long. I don't think we do.
I move to accept council's recommendation.
Second.
Discussion. The motion is to accept council's recommendation. Those in favor of that motion vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And the motion passes unanimously. Number 73. My first question, I just found the answer to it. I didn't realize this was the type of license that says real estate broker, but he's the principal or she's the principal broker, correct?
Here, when we get I think so. Some of these just say, licensed principal broker. That when we get them, they'll say real estate broker, and I think they grandfathered in, but in this case, it looks.
So your recommendation, which I'm going to support, is a $500 civil penalty against the principal broker because he didn't make sure he had a licensed agent working under him. And then you want to open up a complaint against the licensee for failure for practicing real estate without a license for at least some period of time.
Right.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept council's recommendation?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Diaz, seconded by Mr. Gwynn. Discussion. Those in favor of the motion vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. That motion passes unanimously. And finally, number 83, your recommendation, Pam, was to discuss. You want to give us some background on this one?
Sure. This was a case that was first presented to the commission, I believe, at the August or September meeting. This is a case where there was an applicant for an affiliate broker license. His application in May of 20, and then he was disciplined by FINRA, which is a federal, the financial industry regulatory authority over securities that handles those type of professions, for having exceeded his scope of authority with a client. He was selling some CDs that weren't mature and did not abide by that client's instructions. So he was disciplined by FINRA had a fine. He was suspended for, I believe it was 18 months. And that he entered into what's FINRA's version of our consent orders that we use in July of 2019. In May of 2019. In July of 2019, he applied for an affiliate broker license. And as a part of that application process, there were some questions regarding whether or not he'd been disciplined by any type of other governmental agency or regulatory body that he answered no to, that were not correct, that should have been answered yes. So I had this on, I believe it was, like I said, the September meeting, to have some discussion about, in this particular case, there's also a case that has been pending with the Tennessee Securities and Insurance Division. I believe this respondent he's not licensed by the Securities Division. He did have a license with the Insurance Division. But there was a very similar situation where in an initial application now with the Securities Division, apparently this respondent had also answered no when he should have answered yes. So there was a pending case in the hearing that took place regarding that. And so at the last commission meeting where this was presented, the decision was to defer it until November because the findings and facts and conclusions of law for that case that had just been heard prior to that meeting were due in October. So I followed up with that with the attorney that was handling that case. They don't have a ruling yet in that. They're not expecting one they said it could take up to 90 days. The state has presented their proposed findings in the case. So it was deferred till November. And so I wanted to put this back on to discuss. Certainly the commission does not have to wait on the decision with the Securities and Insurance Division. You could certainly move forward with disciplinary action, an assessment of that today. That's an option. I think that we have some material issues where some material facts were misrepresented, and I think that's enough to certainly move forward with a recommendation for disciplinary action up to revocation in this case.
Question. What was the original recommendation? It doesn't, or was there one? Was it discussed the first time, and yes. This is discussed again?
Yes.
So we've not talked about revocation yet, because I remember this from a couple of months ago that the way I was looking at it is he defrauded us into giving him a license. Well, I don't know. He defrauded. He got a license under misleading conditions, let's say, meaning he checked the box wrong. He was under investigation from FINRA, and then he collected commissions. No, here I thought it was his license expired, and he renewed it, and then collected commissions when he got his license under false pretenses, let's say. Is that kind of the series of events, or?
Mostly when he renewed this year, then he said yes to the boxes that should have been checked yes right. in 2019. And so then this complaint was administratively open, but he's been licensed since 2019, and he is licensed currently. Yes.
So he filled out 2 forms over a period of a couple of years. One he answered incorrectly, the other he answered correctly, the same question. Is that right?
Initially, in his response, he states that he had talked to someone at his brokerage, doesn't state whom or if it was a principal broker, just someone at his brokerage who indicated that he should have answered no. So that's the extent of his explanation as to why he had initially answered no on the first episode.
Sorry, Stevie.
Yeah.
So the series of events, when he initially applied, had he disclosed this issue with FINRA, he would have been called to appear in an informal appearance like we had earlier today, and we would have heard the full extent of his federal issues that he's having, and would have been able to decide if he was okay to go ahead and get his license in the state of Tennessee.
That would have been
Correct. Yeah, he would have had to come with his principal broker
It
before
would
the
not have
commission.
automatically been denied. He would have had a chance to appear, and we would have verdicted then. But because he didn't disclose his issues with the federal level, he was just able to go through and get his license without appearing.
So who's the complainant, and like how was this brought to anyone's attention?
He answered it correctly on his renewal application. Okay. So there's also a question on renewal that says in the last 2 years, I believe is how it's worded. So that triggers a flag for us.
So he narked on himself, huh?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if maybe. I don't know. That's how we found out. I don't know how Securities and Insurance found out. Yeah, I don't.
I guess commissioners.
I was kind of in favor of putting this off because I thought it would be interesting to see what he agreed to in the findings of facts category as to the
with the insurance.
Yeah, with the insurance company, because it might speak to what the severity of what he did. But to Pam's point, the deal really in front of us today is the guy incorrectly filled out an application incorrectly in order to get a real estate license, and it was determined subsequent, maybe 2 years later, that he did it. So how do we feel about it as a commission at this point?
Well, FINRA finding 10,000. I know it's a different group, but
I think my sense is, how would I feel about it even without his issues at the federal level? Does he get to enjoy the privilege of a license when he apply on his application and on his initial?
So if we make some sort of decision today, the respondent has every right to come before us in a formal hearing setting to make his case, or her case, whichever the case may be.
He would go through the same process, whether or not, and if they did not.
Oh, we could take let's take the most drastic action this commission could take and revoke his license or her license. It doesn't automatically revoke it. It just means that we're offering that to him as a solution to this complaint. And he would have, or she would have, every right to come back in front of us with an attorney, court reporter, judge, and say, here's why we don't think that's right. That's just one extreme, but it might be that you want to dismiss the complaint. That's the other extreme. And so or you might want to just say, we put it off so we could see those findings and facts. Why do we make a decision until we do it? All those are possibilities, or any variation of those.
Could we suspend his license or their license? I don't know anymore. Could the license be suspended until the findings of fact come?
So they have to agree to suspension, but also we don't have to wait for the findings from Securities or Insurance. We can act completely independent from what they're doing regarding their real estate license. If that's information you would like to obtain, you can, but I see no problem with making a determination today.
I think we ultimately brought it because the Division of Insurance is essentially just like you. They're a licensing board, and my understanding is that it's similar. They also might not have gotten the information up front, gave the license, and then they're making sort of a similar decision about whether the individual should keep the license.
part of the aspect of the securities and insurance, from what I'm able to ascertain. I don't have all the information at this point, but also they regulate that profession, you know, the same one that FINRA touches on. So there was also an aspect of, you know, where he was already licensed with that and dealing with that discipline, you know, that directly goes to what he did with regard.
So, Anna, would a revocation, if it's accepted, would a revocation bar this person from ever having a license, or would they be able to apply for a license at some point in the future?
It bars the individual for a license for a period of time, but not forever, unless that was what was written specifically in the consent order, final order, or whatever is issued.
At a statutory period of time, or is it a?
There's not a specific statutory period of time. I do know if someone's license, for example, if the person's license was revoked, nothing says they can't come back the next day and kind of apply for a license, but if that would require them to meet before you, and if you say no, then they have to wait 6 months.
Another question.
Yes.
Not to muddy the water anymore, but what's the principal broker? What should he or she have done with this? Nothing, or disassociated themselves with this person, or doesn't or nothing, or let Trek run with it, or what?
There's no information that I hard question to answer without haven't submitted supplemental.
Right, they could have broker released this individual, but they're not required to. I don't necessarily see the principal broker in this matter having a part of it, because this was the licensee that answered the question on their application, and then they answered the question correctly on their renewal.
In one moment, I think about offering some mercy because somebody in his brokerage misinformed him. But as I read back through the case, he caused a client to lose $100,000 in his practice as a financial advisor of some nature. And so, I mean, think of a motion if I'm prepared to make one.
DJ, I was thinking the same thing, but did that same person come back to him and go, you know, I've been thinking about this. Maybe you should mark yes on that box. What made him change his mind? Did this person that told him no the first time, did he come back and say, hey, you know, I've been thinking about it. You should have probably marked yes. Or did he just do it thinking?
Yeah, good question.
Ask, is there a motion out there that would move to dismiss this case? So the chair's going to rule that's off the table. Is it
the other extreme that I move to revoke this license?
All right, let's see how that one works. I got a motion by Mr. Diaz, seconded by Mr. Gwynn, that we offer this licensee consent. What do you call it? Consent order. Thank you. That would include revocation of his license or her license. Discussion on that motion. Full understanding that he or she doesn't have to accept it, and may in fact come make his or her case in front of us at some future date if this passes. Any discussion? All right, let's vote. If you're in favor of the motion to offer this guy a consent order to, or lady, to revoke his or her license, please vote aye.
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 If you're opposed, vote no. No. And that motion passes on a 6 aye, 1 no vote. Ms. Torbett votes no. All right, council, anything else to come before us? You got any other ones you want to? Hey, it looks to me, by the way, that you guys are pretty current as far as handling complaints.
Thank you.
I mean, I see complaints coming in that are dated August, and we're hearing it in November. That's pretty darn good. So y'all up to date, pretty much. So we can afford to miss December's.
I think we're fine to miss.
Okay, perfect. All right, Pam, Dennis, thank you both. Legal, Ms. Matlock, anything we need to know?
We're going to commission discussion.
Okay. E&O group policies. Who's starting that off?
I guess I can start it off. I think we had briefly discussed this at a meeting a couple months back. And I think the commission had a position on it, but also had asked for me to reach out to other states that also require, insurance for their licensees. The question that legal has had, and I will allow anyone else to elaborate on what more specific details they need, is essentially, can a firm have a group policy? And if they submit it, is the commission to automatically assume that it covers every agent within that firm, or should they be required to list all agents that are covered under that policy, either on the policy or via the commission's spreadsheet process where each agent would be listed? I think that's.
Could you give us a real life example?
So what we've been seeing is, and primarily principal brokers come back and a licensee did not submit, to our knowledge, insurance for themselves. They realize their license is suspended. They reach out, and we say we did not have your updated policy, which is why your license was suspended. Typically, that agent then provides the policy. They comply with the suspension. A complaint is open against their principal broker. In some of these instances, we've had principal brokers come back and say, well, that agent was covered. They were covered under our group policy. And our process from the licensing side, not necessarily from the legal side, has been to say, well, we did not get record that you were covered under this policy, or that the agent was covered under that policy. And so it has been a big question this year of how do we know when somebody is on or off a policy, and what is the commission's preference on how firms and licensees and principal brokers let us know when somebody is added or removed from a policy.
So, again, my recollection is that the statute requires the licensee to maintain E&O insurance.
Correct.
So the burden is on the licensee to have E&O insurance.
Correct. And there is some responsibility on the principal broker as well to ensure that their licensees have and maintain E&O insurance.
But the statute says the burden lands on the licensee.
Yes, I could pull it up. Exactly what it says. There is no firm requirement. It also states that there's no requirement that the firm carry E&O insurance.
So the firm at their option carries a group policy for E&O insurance to cover their agents.
Yes, that seems to be the practice, at least since I've been with the commission. Okay. Under 6213.112, each licensee who is licensed under this chapter as a condition to licensing carry errors and omissions insurance to cover all activities contemplated under this chapter. The requirements of this section shall not apply to acquisition agents. And B says it is not mandatory that a person who has been issued a firm license obtain errors and omissions insurance in the name of the firm. Persons issued a firm license by the Tennessee Real Estate Commission shall have the option of obtaining errors and omissions coverage in the name of a firm in addition to the mandatory individual coverage for brokers and affiliates within the firm.
So that being understood by the statute, it would seem to me that if a firm is going to carry a group policy to cover their agents, then they also assume the burden of having to inform the commission of which agents they are insuring under their group policy. It just can't be, oh, he's covered on our group policy, and you're supposed to assume that as a commission or as staff that I don't think that, to me, that doesn't meet the threshold of a licensee maintaining E&O insurance.
So that I couldn't agree. Oh, what brokers historically have done is that they were covered, but you didn't know that. You couldn't know that. And what Jeff is saying is that if they want a group policy, then what goes along with that is the responsibility to submit a roster of who is or who isn't on that policy. And I think we can discuss that now, and if you'd like to have a vote so it's clear, I think we can get that today. But
can I ask another question to throw into the discussion? When there is a group policy and they have the roster, when is that roster supposed to be disclosed to us? Before the expiration date or later?
I would say when the policy is first purchased and renewed.
Okay. I'm just wondering, like, because
or if there's a change, if an agent leaves or joins, they gotta
right.
update you as well.
So what we've had is that we've had agents pay the amount, and then their principal broker comes back and says, we have a group policy. And then at that point, they would be like, these are the people that are on it, but we originally didn't have it. So what I'm understanding is that's insufficient.
To me, if you're onboarding a new agent and you have a group policy for E&O insurance, you're going to hit that agent for a monthly fee to defer your costs. So unless you make a business decision to not do that, but you should tell that agent, don't get E&O insurance. You're going to be covered under our policy, and we're going to send your name to the commission, letting them know that we are covering you. That would be my thought on the business practice behind that.
As a commission, I just don't see where we can justify having staff guess who's covered and who's not covered.
Right. That's not your job to chase that.
So a motion that would help staff, Caitlin, would be that, or maybe Anna's got it.
So I guess the overall question that we're asking is if we are accepting group policies and under what circumstances.
So I guess let me take a shot at phrasing the motion. I want to make a motion to require firms licensed in the state of Tennessee that maintain group policies for their agents disclose to the commission those agents that are covered at the time of purchase of the policy, time of renewal, and whenever new agents arrive or agents separate. And if it has to be made part of the Trek 1 to say this agent's no longer covered under my group policy, God bless you. Go for it.
And good motion, Jeff. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Ferris. Steve, go ahead.
I might want to add, so if at the beginning, his motion was that the broker submit the policy at the beginning and the end of a particular, let's say, 12-month period that the policy's paid for. So if an agent came month 3, of the 12 and left in month 9 for whatever reason, then that person would escape knowing how would that work?
So based off of what Commissioner Diaz stated, the original policy would need to be submitted in month 1.
Right.
The updated policy with the new person would need to be submitted in month 3.
Okay.
And then when the person is removed, it's submitted again in month 9.
Okay.
We would be notified that
Yeah.
Steve Gwynn is no longer covered under.
Right. So
that's not an unusual practice because
Right.
if
I'm not sure your
So
maybe we need to amplify the motion a little bit, or no?
So it's kind of like we will accept a group policy, but the policy that we have on file needs to be the most current roster of agents.
It's really though, during the term of that policy, if the broker has many agents coming and going, then it really needs to be reporting anytime somebody comes in or somebody leaves.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily. In my example, it could be every month. I mean, it could be every month, right?
Right. No,
Okay.
that makes sense.
I think we could, if it made sense. Right now, a majority of our policies are, we get via what we call a roster, which is just a spreadsheet, and it shows the licensee's name, their policy number, their carrier, carrier, and the dates of the policy and the coverage of the policy, the limits. So we could potentially create an additional form that would be submitted to let somebody know, like, this person has been added or this person has been removed. We do have an E&O form that could be used, but it seems that not everybody is using it when somebody is added or removed.
So we could also accept I would think that the insurance company would have a rider that would show comings and goings, because how are they going to know if they have a claim if the person's on the policy or not, other than the broker telling the insurance company this person is on the policy?
If that's the case, and we were, I guess my question would be,
when does the covered activity occur?
Yeah.
And
Is it whatever the policy says?
right, but I'm
right,
trying
but
to
the
figure
policy's
out.
for a period of time.
Yeah.
So if the activity in question happened during the course of that policy and that agent was on the roster, then that activity is covered.
Correct.
But if they were since removed, then they're not.
How
Or
often,
added.
Or added.
Right. How often is that roster submitted from the
Well,
insurance company?
I mean, if I'm the insurance company, I say whenever somebody comes and goes. Otherwise, you got 10 days to tell me, or there's got to be a finite language in the policy, you would think.
And that's where I think the Trek One can really be useful, because if you're separating, if you're moving your license to a different firm or you're joining a firm, the Trek One gets filled out, and I think at that point that's where you collect the information about whether this agent separating or joining has been added or removed from an E&O insurance. I think that's probably that moment. That's your opportunity right there to get it as a regulating body.
So it's the Trek One form that triggers information to be updated with the commission.
Well, yeah, because the agent is changing their firm, their
right.
firm address, where they're going. I mean, they're updating everything at that point.
Right. I'm just thinking like in the interim before, beginning, end, if there's a Trek One that's been submitted where someone's been added or removed, they should, with that, include a roster of individuals if it's a group policy that it applies to.
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
Just listening to this conversation, it seems like this is a lot of added work for you guys to have this group policy. I mean, how do you guys feel about? I mean, this seems like a whole lot of work.
I think if they submit it in the way in which the commission requests, which is by the roster, it is not a large amount of additional work. We regularly get those, and it follows a similar process to our education, where in a typical situation they would either the E&O company sends it to us, or the firm sends us the list of agents and the policy information in a spreadsheet, which is what we call a roster. And then we upload it directly into our system, and through what we call a batch job, they upload all at once, assuming the information is correct. It all gets uploaded at once. So if they do it in that manner, it would not be overly burdensome, because we do that for all agents. And it's been our process to ask firms to do that if they're submitting a policy that, typically if it covers more than 5 to 10 people, we ask them to do that, because otherwise we're manually adding that to each licensee, which does become a lot of additional work. And so that has been our process previously, about how we handle those. And I think through the complaint process this last year, we've just gotten a lot of questions.
So who's going to be held accountable, and how are we going to, if they don't do it, if they don't send you a spreadsheet each time somebody's added or not added, is that the office manager, the broker, the agent? I mean, we're still just spread out.
So I would say the statute holds the licensee and the principal broker responsible. When the licensee doesn't have E&O, the licensee gets penalized, and then also their principal broker currently, which is really how this whole discussion came to be, is we're having a lot of principal brokers say, well, they were covered. And again, like it has been mentioned, we have not been in the practice of assuming who is covered under a policy unless they're specifically listed, or unless they're submitting it as an individual. Then we are not making any assumptions currently on adding policies unless we were being directed as to who's covered.
Looking at your initial applications for 2021. So in October of 21, there was 492 new applications. Majority of those are individual policies, or most of them going to group policies, or
we typically we don't have the issue as much with initial licensees, because we're going through each step. It's when the policies get renewed that we're not being notified, if that makes sense. Changed, yeah.
So again, I mean, to go back to my initial question, the burden initially is on the licensee.
Initially, it's on the licensee.
And the firm at their option has a group policy that covers their agents.
Yes, and I don't know, legal might speak to this more. It seems like where we're having the issue is when the complaint is then open against the principal broker, and the principal broker is saying, well, they were.
So the largest company in the state has its own group policy. And it's a big, big company. And have they figured it out? I mean, do you have problems with that company?
I would say they have figured it out. We don't have an issue with that company.
It's the largest
that I'm aware of. In my opinion, I would say the issue has come with these other kind of one-offs.
Okay, that's good enough. We got a motion on the floor. Mr. Diaz offered it, and I'm trying to remember who said it. DJ did. And that motion, you want to summarize the motion? It's on the record, so just...
Anna did write it. Anna wrote it down.
Oh, Anna wrote it down. Great.
So what I have written here is the commission will accept group policies. However, the policy is to disclose who is covered, and this is to be submitted at renewal, when an individual is removed or added, and the expiration of the group policy.
Somewhere in his motion, he mentioned the Trek One, but I don't know.
Right. So I mean, the
That was
Trek
more of
one.
I'm sorry, I did say the Trek One, but that was more of a suggestion to kind of help you
Right.
collect
So if
the
we
data.
wanted to include the Trek one, we could, but I think that's just kind of like a way
yeah,
we could connect it.
I'll
but
leave it to staff to
yeah,
operationalize in
okay.
their best way.
Sounds good.
All right, that's the motion. We've discussed it. I think it's time to vote. If you're in favor of the motion, vote aye.
Aye.
If you're opposed, vote no. And that motion passes. Next topic, education recovery account. Caitlin?
That I'm going to hand over to Anna. Could just preface it that we've had some changes to the law. It has historically been very hard for any consumer to make a claim against the education and recovery account. So this past session through the department's bill, it was some of the requirements were removed to make it a little bit easier to access for consumers that have potentially been harmed by a licensee.
Just for the record, what's the balance in that account approximately?
Somewhere around $4 or $5 million. So
nobody ever gets to it.
Right. So I think with the changes that were made, we're going to see more claims made to this account. The reason that this is being brought to you right now is because we've received confirmation that an individual intends to make a claim to the real estate education and recovery account. So when we were discussing this matter, we were trying to figure out how best to get this information to the commission to make a decision. I'm not sure right now how frequent this is going to be. So my recommendation when I was originally thinking it, and I'll just kind of tell you my mindset, was I know this board doesn't have committees, but what I would see would be a subcommittee of 3 commissioners that would sit and hear the information regarding a real estate education account claim. So the claim would come from, the claim would appear, they would fill out the form that we're working on completing, and then the committee would review the information and then make a recommendation. Then the recommendation comes to the whole board so you all can consider the matter. The reason I suggested a committee is because I don't know how frequently we're going to receive these type of claims, and I think if the whole commission was to listen to everything for all of the claims, it would be additional time. So we are trying to figure out how best to make this process go.
Can you start it from the beginning? I'm not even clear. What kind of claim would this be? And
Sure. So each individual that applies to be a real estate licensee is required to make a deposit into the real estate education recovery account. Previously, this account had very, very high barriers, and so individuals had to do things exactly timely to get a claim through. I have not seen a claim come through in my time since I've been here in April of 2018. So because of that, and after we spoke with the legislature at a sunset hearing, the General Assembly was concerned about the amount of money in the real estate education recovery account, because essentially we had individuals paying at first it was $10 into account of $4 or $5 million that was not going anywhere. So based on that, we lowered the fee to $1. So each individual that applies is $1. That's the lowest we could go. We had drama about that. And to essentially kind of shrink the amount of money that was going to be deposited into the account. So the account is there for individuals that have been aggrieved by an individual that is licensed by this commission for an action or a violation that has occurred. So if trying to think of an example that is not the one that I'm thinking of. So if an individual had something where their real estate agent did not return some kind of money to them and they would like the money back, then they would submit a claim to the account. The person, the claimant, would submit a claim, and then we would review it to make sure that it meets the standards written in statute. And then at that time, it would be a decision would need to be made if the claim is going to be granted in full or if it's going to be granted at all. So each claim is capped at $15,000 per transaction. So it's still going to take some time to bring down that balance a bit, but I think any kind of movement is positive movement for it. And so that's kind of where we are now. And so because it was difficult and because of the concern about the size of the account and licensees giving us money into account that's just sitting there and growing in millions of dollars, we removed certain matters from the statute that make it easier for an individual to make a claim.
This is outside of this conversation, but the fund can also be used on educational purposes.
Yes.
So you will probably notice some traction within the next year due to the fact that the law has changed, and then there is also a project in the works with the governor's distressed counties being a priority to allow licensees to take, or candidates, to take pre-licensing education as part of this fund. So we should see some movement based on both,
Right.
But it can also be used for education.
Right. So there is movement, but as Caitlin was saying before this and before the changes that we've made since I've been here, it's been very little movement, and so the account just continued to balloon and grow. And so we had these changes submitted and they were accepted by the General Assembly. And so now it is our job to figure out how we are going to proceed with hearing the claims and granting them or denying them.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Got some questions. Go ahead.
Jeff, you have.
So in your example, you mentioned a subcommittee. So would that be an ad hoc committee that would be assembled when there's a claim, or
Right.
do you?
So it would be whenever we had a claim. I don't foresee the committee meeting like on a monthly basis.
Okay.
I don't anticipate that we will. So for example, the claims that we have now, the committee would meet prior to the January meeting, and they would look at all of the matters that are there, make a determination and recommendation, and then it comes back to the whole commission for discussion and consideration.
Would those subcommittee meetings be subject to the sunshine laws?
I believe they're open meetings as well, but I don't think that our committee meetings for some of our other programs have to meet in person. So I'm not sure exactly, but I'm pretty sure the answer is likely yes.
Oh yeah, so it needs to be on the record.
So right. So we would notice the meeting and then have it and we talk about
A lot of times these would be maybe the committee would meet Tuesday at 3:30 prior to the commission meeting. I don't think we could meet any earlier than 8:30 but so it would likely be something like the afternoon prior to the.
So when commissioners come in the day before.
Right. So that would be the goal, is to have it the day before the meeting, so there's a time to travel, and then the meeting can proceed the next.
So the manner in which those committee members are selected would be at the discretion of the commission or the chair.
Yes, so my thoughts for the committee were it's meant to be 3 individuals. I think it's probably important to try and make sure that it is kind of diverse across the Grand Division, and I do believe that we should have one of our consumer members on the committee.
Okay, let's go DJ, Steve, then Joe.
Yeah, I was gonna just, since I'm here in Nashville, my proximity to the department, to be on that committee if I need to be. To the distressed counties piece, do I understand this as a part of the education? There's possibly a program to be developed where individuals, Tennesseans, can seek financial assistance through this account to get their license?
So, sorry, I didn't mean to hijack the conversation. I just wanted the commission to also know that there would be it can be used for education. And so, as a department and as a program, we were asked to submit ideas to support the governor's priority for economic growth in the distressed counties. And so I had submitted an idea that we would potentially work with graduating high school seniors in the distressed counties and work with an education provider to provide them with the 60-hour pre-licensing course and the 30-hour pre-licensing course in order to get their license and come into the profession. And so that proposal was submitted. And so we are finalizing the RFP process right now. So that is our request for proposal process, to where we put the bid out there for what we were looking for to any education provider. And so it will be for graduating. The goal is for it to be for graduating seniors, but maybe college isn't the right avenue for them. And so they'll have the option to take pre-licensing and join the profession.
That's really of high interest to me. And if I could be of any help to that, I already had some ideas as this discussion has played out of how to particular training pieces that I have benefited from, I have seen other colleagues benefit from as it relates to being successful in the real estate industry. And if I could be of any support from my position as a commission member, just reach out, and I'm glad to do that.
Yeah, I'll keep the commission posted. We, as things go in the state, we did have to bid it out, and it was an anonymous process with, education providers submitting bids if they were interested. And so we are at like the end line with what provider will be selected based on their bid. And then in the spring, we will start marketing to the distressed counties and the high schools in those counties is the plan. So yeah, I think it will be an ongoing thing. Obviously we want anybody that takes part in the program to be successful in the industry.
Yeah, and I mean, if we need to have, I just don't want to hijack the conversation either, but if there needs to be a presence in these counties by some of us, put me on the short list, because that's, it's a great way to build the communities by having, advocates of the community working in the real estate industry. So.
Thank you, DJ.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm a little, I don't know if confused is a word, but I saw in here that balance in that account is supposed to be a minimum of $500,000, and we're now at $5 million or whatever the number is, $4 million. So what was the intent originally? I'm kind of new on this concept of this education recovery. Is there like a claim form? What's the what are the procedures involved in getting money out of it? Is it limited to licensees, or is it, or what? What's it all about?
Right, so I do think the intent it was what we're doing right now. But I think the way that it was written, made it virtually impossible for someone to successfully submit a claim.
So where does it say, how is it written? Is it in this, is it in the manual, or is it somewhere else that describes it?
The account?
The account, the workings of the account, how do you apply, who do you apply to? Is there a form? Is it?
You'll see, I'm pretty sure 208 talks about the real estate education recovery account. Hold on.
And then I was just going to elaborate that that it's for consumers that have been harmed by a licensee.
It's for consumers then.
Have been harmed by a licensee. It's not for licensees. It is for.
It's not about commission disputes or any of that kind of thing.
No. It is about like consumers that were harmed potentially by a licensee that they were working with, and they are not able to be made whole from that licensee. And it does also speak to, let's just say, how
do they prove it? I mean, how do they prove they were harmed? Describe in here how you prove it.
So if you look in your book, it is 208, so it should be around page 24 or 25. But regardless, if you have a red book, blue book, or green book, it is out of date. So we can I can provide you the latest language that's there, but the information is provided about how the money, it says the amount that the claim is supposed to be and what is required for an individual to do before they can make a claim. It does not necessarily provide for us how we distribute the money. So there's no mention of a form, there's no mention of any kind of committee or anything. So that was my suggestion of how to process these claims, because to my knowledge we haven't done these, at least in the past 10 years.
So the mechanics, so the law or rule was written with the mechanics of how to work it, not flushed out. Is that pretty much right?
So the law was written with how they intended for it to be used and for its purpose. It did not provide how we were to distribute those funds, which would be appropriate. So because that leaves up to your discretion.
But it's limited to a certain amount, though, right?
Yes.
It's limited to what,
$15,000 per transaction.
So what if there's not enough money in the account to pay anything? What if it's zero? I guess it can only go below 500,000.
Right.
It can't go below 500,000.
It can't. So if there is a claim, and we only have $500,000, $500,001, and the claim is more than $1, we can't process that
Right.
claim.
Okay. So was it seeded with, where'd the 500,000 come from in the beginning?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
It's just the amount that's written in the statute.
This is a difficult topic to talk about because nobody's really ever taken advantage of it because it's so dang onerous. It's so difficult to do. This is really the first time I've ever heard a discussion about it, even getting the commission involved in the process. I don't know if the law changed to make that happen. But
Right. Well, no, the law changed to remove those barriers, and so now, because it's easier to make a claim, that's why we came to you, because we know of at least one claim that is coming down the pipeline.
Oh, microphone, please.
This is not for punitive type stuff, just compensation stuff, right?
So it states in the law, hold on one second, I want to say it exactly. So any person can recover from the account actual or compensatory damages, not including interest and costs, resulting from any violation of the chapter or any rule promulgated under this chapter committed by a broker, affiliate broker, or timeshare salesperson.
No punitive type stuff, so they won't be.
But it says actual or compensatory.
Yeah, which is good, because if you opened up punitive, I think it would. Well, it would not just deplete the fund, but the number of complaints would increase dramatically for anytime you incentivize somebody.
And I have two thoughts.
Yes.
I'm not opposed to the committee idea, but I think the first time through, it might be helpful for it to be presented with the full commission, because none of us know much about it to start with, and by the time that's over, we may be begging to get a smaller committee the next time, or it may be so efficient that we don't need to do that. I don't like to just have committees for committee's sake, but the first time through, I think it would be helpful for everybody to see all the workings. And I assume these people they don't have to be anonymous at this point.
Oh, no, they're not anonymous at this point.
Do you assume they would be in front of us either virtually or in person?
So I know the person that I've been talking to, the one that's going to make the claim, is more than welcome. They are intending to come to the meeting, but there's no requirement that an individual come physically in person.
Could you see that person for a committee on the afternoon?
So I'm not at the committee. I'm not intending for the person that is making the claim to appear. It would just be at that point the commission reviewing the paperwork that they have submitted with the information to consider for said claim. Yes.
That's perfect. The second thought I have, this seems, just be thinking about this, it seems like all kinds of people that are upset with timeshare companies are going to show up wanting money.
Well, as we said before, it's going to be actual or compensatory damages. So it's not just saying, oh, I'm upset and I want money from the claim. There are actual requirements that they have to do, that they're using some other form of legal action as well.
Like if their maintenance fee went up and they weren't expecting it, they might say the spread between those two numbers is what I want times 20 years.
No, there are more requirements than just that.
So I want to make sure we stay way away from it.
So does it say they have to take it to another legislative body, basically take it to court as well as come for a claim? Or does it say you have to exhaust all other remedies and then you come here, or what?
Previously, it was you had to exhaust all of your remedies. And you then had to submit your claim in some very specific order of time. Like the judge said it, and it has to be promptly given. So right now, it doesn't require an individual to exhaust all methods of claims.
But who's the other side of it? I mean, are we?
So if someone makes a claim and they've been harmed by John Doe, you're going to hear what they said that John Doe did. And if you agree with what they said from John Doe and would like to give that person amount of money, then they would receive $15,000 per transaction. But then
up to $15,000.
Right, up to $15,000 per transaction.
John Doe's not here to defend himself because he doesn't care, right? Because the money's in the account, he doesn't have anything to do with it. So it seems like it's a kind of a one-sided thing. I mean, somebody's coming in here with paperwork that they claim they've been harmed, and there's a check that they've written or money that they've lost, and so they're making a case.
I think.
I mean, I don't.
let's just say John Doe goes in and steals a piece of jewelry, gets arrested, thrown in jail, and the people are out the jewelry. They might have a reason to come before us and say, a licensee caused me to lose $15,000 worth of jewelry.
And he's in jail.
Yeah, and really, it's not a contested hearing. It's they're making their case for why they should get the money, and we're saying, is that reasonable? And if it is, then we're likely to say, okay, let's give them up to $15,000.
I have one more question. Like the one you're working on now, has there been a complaint about that particular thing brought to us before, or could we open a complaint after an award?
A complaint has been
Okay.
against the individual that we're speaking about. And one of the things to also note is that if you decide to grant a claim to be made, the licensee that the claim would essentially be against is required to pay the fund back.
So would you, when can you send us the new legislation? Just and do you need anything done today, or are you just putting us on notice this is coming down the pike?
No, I didn't need anything today. I'm just my understanding is I'm going to go back to the individual that intends to make a claim and tell them that it will be considered at the January meeting.
Commission, are you okay with it being in front of the full commission at least the first time through, or would you prefer a smaller committee?
I guess the question would be, would we receive the information in our packet like we normally would, with the consent agenda and all that kind of stuff?
Right. So my intention is that we would give the information to the committee, and they would look at it. They would make a recommendation. That same information is still going to go to the board members too, which is why you can agree with said recommendation, amend it, or disagree. I just thought for time purposes, it might be better to start smaller and then go bigger after we have some kind of recommendation on the table.
What other question? Do you contemplate counsel for the applicant being present?
I do not.
Okay, but they're not barred.
No, they're not barred.
Okay.
I think at that point it would be up to the commission's discretion whether you would like the individual to make a statement or not.
Commission, once more, first time through, full commission or a small committee? Full.
What about the number of cases per period? Meaning, are we hearing just one, or is it more than one, or how is it gonna?
So
what do you think?
I have only heard from one person. So right now we only have one.
Since you've been here, or just in since the law has
No, sorry.
changed?
So I've only had one person since the new law has gone into effect contact me of their intention to make a claim for the account.
I'll bet you can count on one hand the number of withdrawals from the recovery fund.
But since I've been with the commission, Commissioner Gwen, I've seen exactly 0 people.
Wow.
Regarding
I just did a quick little math exercise. You know how many claims it would take to exhaust $3 million? 200. If everybody got 15 grand.
And that's not taking into account the fact that it grows by $1 per.
I think it'd be good.
New application.
It does grow.
Is it growing in interest?
It is growing in interest too. So the thing is, the individual, the licensee that it's against is responsible for paying back the full amount that is given to the aggrieved individual, and that amount includes interest. So they're required to pay us back all of that amount. So yes, it's accruing interest as well.
That holds true. Never gonna.
It's never.
But so the account, there's not
in your lifetime.
No, there's not a timeline for how it. Let me try this one more time. If an individual wants to have their license active again, they would have to pay the account back. So I can see a lot of people just saying, "Oh, well, I'm not going to do real estate anymore."
Okay. So let's go full commission January.
Okay.
And thank you. And if you get us the legislation, that'd be helpful. Just so
I will
we
get that out to you.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else, Anna?
No.
Okay.
You sure?
Are you sure? Caitlin?
Yeah, no.
Fees have been over, like it was.
I think you should be on the accounting board. That's the. You need to be with the CPAs. You were talking about a
Counting of like what
okay,
happens
like
every
the.
year.
I mean, just out of curiosity, it's like
So I get a report every month, and there's not any activity except for, we do get some minimal charges of our fiscal department that has to work on like the reports, but there's very minimal coming out, and then what's coming in is any new licensee pays $1 towards it. So I can see how far they could go back. It might be an uninteresting report in the sense if they don't go back further than 5 years. The last time I think a claim was made under Robin Ryan, so there has maybe been a claim in the last 10 years.
I've never seen one.
You've never seen one, so probably
10 years
I
prior.
think it's because
of the judgment.
It was so hard.
Oh, they don't know about it.
Well, you have to have a civil judgment, which means you have to go
Right. So someone would have to
go to court, hire an attorney, prove, and then, they might, within their civil judgment, get the money that they're looking for. They probably can get more than $15,000 if they've been aggrieved more than $15,000,
Right.
as there wouldn't be a limit.
And they still do have to go through litigation of some kind before they come to. So it's not. There is a threshold that has to be cleared to make a claim. It's just lowered.
So we could give you, I
can give you also just like this. It's not going to be current, but I can give you the information that we used at the sunset hearing about the claim.
That'll be good. But the bottom line is,
and also the numbers that we used for the fee changes.
Department suggested a good piece of legislation that the legislature adopted, which makes it easier for consumers who've been aggrieved to get some sort of compensation.
Of course, yeah.
And we're part of it now. Maybe we always have been, but it never got to us because it's so dang hard that it wasn't worth pursuing. So I'm looking forward to it. If we can help people out that licensees have harmed, that's what we should do. All right, Caitlin, anything else?
You probably won't see me in January, but I will hopefully be back in February. So I'm sad to miss the first, the inaugural.
You're not. Don't even try.
Who's in charge?
Anna's in charge while I'm gone.
Perfect.
So any complaints, please send them to her. Anna.
All right, Ross, anything else? Aaron, anything else? Today's your birthday? I can't hear you. You're muffled.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Aaron. And let's see, today is DJ's anniversary. Yesterday was Stacy's birthday. Who else has something important?
I got a birthday on the 29th.
Jeff's got a birthday on the 29th.
I've got one on the 22nd.
And one on the 22nd. It's just
November.
a lot of Novembers.
Vegetarians.
So, commissioners, any final words on the letter?
Just one more thing. For commission discussion in January, I'd like to revisit the topic of a commission retreat.
Okay. Anna will lead that discussion, right, since she's in charge?
I have to look at all the things that we'll have to talk about at the meeting, so it will be considered.
You just tell the chair if you want it on there, we'll get it there. Joe, anything?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay. Happy Thanksgiving. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year and happy childbirth. To both of you two, really, to both of you two. When's your daughter's? We'll see you beforehand then. All right, guys, have a safe trip home. Thanks for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Safe trip. You going back?
I am. I'm